can get started. See, John, he may have gone to get a drink of water. We should be okay. He'll get
No,
back.
I'm here. I'm just getting a backup set of headphones.
All right. Well, let's call to order this December 9th, 2021 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both emergency procedures authorized by Freedom of Information Act, the Architectural Review Board needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and that at an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your other colleagues. Following the roll call, we will vote to establish that we can hear every other member. So first, Ms. Aubrey.
Yes, my name is Michelle Aubrey. I am at my home in Alexandria, Virginia, and I can hear everyone just fine. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Burns.
Hello, this is John Burns. I'm speaking to you from my living room in Alexandria, Virginia, and I can hear everyone who has spoken so far just fine.
All right, this is Christopher Daniel, Chairman of the Architectural Review Board. I am presenting from my house in Reston, and so far I can hear everyone clearly. Ms. Wan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is Samantha Huang. I'm at home at Reston, Virginia. I can hear everyone so far, so good.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, thank you. This is Stephen Kalinsky. I am in my office in the city of Alexandria, and I can hear everybody just fine. Thank you.
Ms. Murray.
This is Elise Murray. I'm in my residence in Vienna.
Ms. Knotkins has not responded, so at this point she is being marked as absent. Ms. Orr.
I'm Kay Orr. I'm at my home in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, Kay. And as Denise pointed out, Mr. Plumpy was uncertain if he would be attending, so he is marked as absent as well. Mr. Zellman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm at my home in Burke, Virginia, and I can hear everyone just fine.
All right, at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the Vice Chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. All right, I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
There's a motion. Second.
Second.
I think I heard Ms. Orr first, but a few people came in, so we'll say Ms. Orr. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right. As determined by the roll call, 8 members of this ARB are present and therefore satisfy the quorum minimum. ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
So motion is second.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. I therefore move that the state of the emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB county website or through phone at 1-844-621-3956 with the access code 2346 011-0696. It is so moved.
Okay, there's a motion. Second.
I'll second it.
Second for Mr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries.
All right, and let the record show that Mr. Plumpy has joined us. Joe, can you confirm where you are presenting from?
Yes, I am in the confines of my residence in Fairfax Station, Virginia, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I can hear you loud and clear, and I can see you loud and clear. I mean, not loud and clear, but I can see you very clear. So.
Thank you, Joe. All right. It is next required that all matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. I think Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
All right. Last but not least, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item, as is ARB standard practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Plumpy, I think, got in there with a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries. Gavel back.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Still meeting that 6-minute mark. We're doing pretty good with this. All right. In addition, moving through our call to order and special COVID motions now for staff. Denise, is there any information you would like to share about the virtual meeting format for folks?
Yes, thank you. So this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. Attendees may email me during the meeting use the Q&A box or chat function in the WebEx platform for inquiries. Staff will monitor and respond accordingly. Attendees experiencing technical issues should place a call to the WebEx technical assistance at 1-866-799-3293. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Denise. Next, as we love to kick off our Architectural Review Board meetings, we start with the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. And Mr. John Burns has graciously offered to read it.
Good evening again. Statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against the destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you very much, John. All right, next in our lineup is the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion from any member to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Zellman.
I move we approve the agenda as is.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second. Oh, John.
Seconded by Ms. Orr. John, I saw your thumbs up, but I couldn't hear you, so thank you. All those, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. The agenda is approved as submitted by staff. Next, we move into the introduction and recognition of guests. Denise, do we have any folks we need to introduce or any guests that we need to identify?
There are several people that are logged on representing applications or workshops or presentations. And we also, it looks like we have a number of people, members of the public logged on. I'm not sure if they count as guests. I don't know whether I should go through
I
each one.
think when we talk about guests, we're referring to special folks that might be presenting information or folks that are not on the application agenda.
Thank you,
They
Chris, for
make
the
every member of the
clarification.
public go around and identify themselves. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. We don't have any consent calendar action items on the agenda. I will remind applicants to try to limit your presentation time to roughly about 8 minutes for submission, and for resubmissions, we do suggest 3 minutes for resubmissions. Obviously, what I'm asking for is just a consideration of everyone's time, since we do have a lot of items on the agenda. Again, a reminder since we do appear to have a lot of individuals from the public who are also watching the meeting, if you do wish to provide a comment following an application in the items for action, I will ask Denise to let me know if anyone has indicated that in the chat or the Q&A section, and you will be afforded 3 minutes to provide your statement. Thank you. All right, moving on to the agenda, the first item for action is ARB 21LR02, Tesla solar roof system installation located at 9105 Powerhouse Road. The applicant is submitting for an approval of a Tesla solar roof system, roof vent pipe, and fan exhaust upgrade. The application previously was presented to us at the November 2021 meeting. Daniel Halstead represents the application. Mr. Halstead, hopefully Denise is unmuting you so that you can talk, and we will get up any presenting materials that you would like to show.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
All right, welcome, Mr. Halstead. I guess what I would suggest is, obviously, since you were here last time, kind of walking us through any of the materials that have changed or any updates.
Well, I've got just about 3 slides. It's pretty straightforward.
Perfect.
If I can make it work. If I could have the next slide, because I don't have control. Okay, so the only thing outstanding was the ARB had a question about the 2018 building code providing pathways or accesses for fire code staff, and asked that future action be conditioned that the building code be verified with the county. Based on this, I called up the permitting folks. Can I have the next slide? And spoke with a Mr. Nicholas Pilara, and I explained the situation to him, and he said he thought it was pretty simple. Please go back and make sure that your permitting and the code that you're using for your permit application agrees with the code that you have for your drawing package. We found out that the drawing package was for the 2015 IRC, and so Tesla went back and reapplied for a permit. And if I could see the next slide, please. You can see they got a permit back, and under the general notes, it refers to the correct 2015 IRC code. Therefore, the question, these drawings were approved in accordance with the 2015 code, which didn't have the additional verbiage that the ARB member was referencing. And so I think I would like to propose that the board approve my request.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Halstead. I appreciate that clarification there. I will go around the room to the various members and see if they have any questions. Ms. Aubrey.
I have no questions or concerns. I'm fine with the application as it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I note that since Fairfax County accepts either the 2015 or 2018 code at this point, your request to use the application of the 2015 code to this particular project is just fine. I do have a question more directed to staff than anything else. It's not your concern, but I noticed that the drawing that you're currently showing on the screen says Fairfax County approved building plan review. And I'm wondering how that is possible since ARB review is ostensibly required.
So, John, I think I'm going to answer for the applicant in this front because I think I have a little bit more of an understanding as to what's happening here, and I'm hoping it's going to be rectified. Is part of it has to do, is my understanding, with the fact that the Lorton area is actually designated under an MOA. And I think a lot of this seems to be an issue regarding the mapping and GIS information and how HODs are presented compared to the Laurel Hill Lorton MOA area. And I've expressed to staff that that is a concern of mine, that due to technology, there is the possibility that things can get approvals without actually going through us, because someone might not know that. It's my understanding they're working to adjust this as part of an update that's going on. Thankfully, Mr. Halstead lives in the community with folks that all know that coming to us is the thing that has to happen. And so obviously he's coming here, thankfully following the right procedures. But that is my understanding that I've gotten from staff, is this is more of a bureaucratic snafu than a intent to approve without our permission.
Thank you for the clarification. I do appreciate that. With that in hand, I have no concerns about the current project. I do note this is, in my experience, the first solar panel project that I've been able to approve without reservation. And I think it's because Tesla took the extra step of creating non-solar panels to integrate with the roof so that it appears, for the most part, to be a uniform roofing treatment. And I think that they're to be commended for that.
Thank you, John. Duly noted. Ms. Swan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have no comment, and I appreciate the applicant's response to our comment prior. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Samantha. Mr. Polinsky.
No, my only comment is I'm excited to see this installed. So.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
No comments or questions.
All right, Ms. Orr.
Thank you for the clarification. It all looks good.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Plumpy.
Oh, I missed Mr. Plumpy.
No, that's
I'm
okay.
Sorry there,
Okay.
John. I'm sorry.
Come
there.
late. That's okay. Come late, don't get cold. I understand. Is it my turn?
Yes, it is
Okay.
your turn.
I was going to say that, hey, I can't wait till it's installed too. I can't wait to hook up to the grid with him, the new owners. And I will say this is just what John said. It's a very good application so that it's not obnoxiously obtrusive, as you see on old solar panels. From a site landscape wise, they do make light pole fixtures with a strip of solar panel on the one backside of a pole. So it's already in that process. So it's kind of nondescript. It does the work. So I'm excited to see this go in as well. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Joe. And
Yep.
sorry, Mr. Zellman.
I'm just very protective of going last, but I have no questions or concerns. Thanks.
All right, and I likewise don't have any further comments. I'm interested to see it constructed and see what it looks like. It's always interesting to see these things presented in concept. So I have no further comments either, and I appreciate staff providing some clarification on the issue regarding the approval. Again, I hold it not against the applicant, but a concern in the bureaucracy that got that through. With that in mind, I did not go in the correct order, so I apologize. We do need to also see if there are any members of the public other than the applicant that wish to provide any statements regarding the application? That should have happened before us. I don't know if Denise, if you've seen any.
I have not seen anybody raise their hand or drop
Okay.
a message in chat. So
Made all that pontificating about it at the beginning and didn't even follow my sequence right. Okay. Well, seeing there are no public comments and we've had discussion, I would entertain a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Burns.
I move that the ARB approve action item ARB-21-LOR-02 located at 9105 Powerhouse Road, Lorton, tax map number 107109H0003 for the proposed installation of a Tesla solar roof system roof vent pipe and fan exhaust upgrade as submitted and presented at the December 9th, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of the Memorandum of Agreement for the Lorton Laurel Hill Eligibility District.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Halstead. Denise will get with you following this meeting to confirm our approval.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all your time. And I'm thankful you do what you do.
Thank you, sir. Stay well and look forward to seeing the project done.
Thank you. Will do.
All right, moving on in our agenda, we are on item number 2, which is ARB 21LOR-03 screened porch with deck, stairs, and stone patio installation located at 9393 Quadrangle Street in the Lorton Laurel Hill MOA area. The applicant is submitting for approval of a screened porch, deck, stairs, and stone patio in the Liberty subdivision. Previously, the applicant had presented the proposed project to the ARB in the November 21 meeting, and Mr. John Burton represents the application. Mr. Burton, are you there with us?
I do not see a microphone next to Mr. Burton's name, which indicates to me that he doesn't have access to a microphone. I emailed Mr. Burton and asked him to maybe call in on the call-in number.
Okay.
But it does not look like he can communicate at this point.
Denise,
it's Laura. You have a call-in user in the attendee list.
That person has been here since the beginning, but I will check. Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Hi, caller on 703-490.
Yes, thank you. This is Johnny Burton.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Brilliant, Laura. Thank you so much.
All right, good to hear you, Mr. Burton.
Good afternoon, board. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. As you know, we provided the overview of the screened-in porch and patio for 9393 Quadrangle in November. At that presentation, the board had several questions. We responded to those questions through Mrs. Dressel in late November, and we're back today to just provide an overview or address any additional questions.
All right, excellent. Feel free to walk us through any of those.
Okay, so there's quite a few photos that were requested in the last, and it answers some of the questions. So in that there's about 17 slides. I'm going to make this kind of rapid, but at any point, stop me if you need an explanation. Next slide, please. All right, so there were the questions outlined from A through D here. They wanted a photo of the guardhouse to the proposed construction site, proposed new construction site from both the upper level and the lower level of the residence, and a proposed new construction site to Laurel Hill House. We have photos of those. In regards to the identification of a front elevation, rear elevation, suggested change on the presentation, I reviewed those and could not find an associated error on on the presented material. If we can identify that, I'll be more than happy to make that change and resubmit. The last two for F and G, we had a photo of the retaining wall as well as the blocks of the retaining wall material and the color. We have those as well. Next slide, please. They also wanted a photo map of the construction site along with the neighboring properties. We have that. And there was a concern about the roof and how inclement weather may be an issue. So we'd like to address that as well. Next slide. All right, so what you're seeing here is the first photo, and as you look on the far right here, that's where the guardhouse is, and this is looking back towards the home on the left. That is the new construction site. Next slide. This one is from the lower level of the new construction site to the guardhouse. As you can see, there are trees there. This is a neighborhood that's only about 3 years old. They're in growth, but you can see that there's some obstruction of view from the lower level. Next slide. This is from the second level, or the main level of the home, and you can see clear of the center position there of the guardhouse, direct of the guardhouse. Questions? Next slide, please. On this one, this is from the lower level looking towards the Laurel Hill house. As you can see, with this thickness of the trees, you're actually unable to see the Laurel Hill house, but I have an annotation of approximately where that home sits. Next slide, please. So this was the slide that I reviewed as a result of the changes that were requested that I could not see. On the lower side of both of these, this is a depiction of the as-built plan without the proposed new construction. So on the left, you have the upper level, and on the right, you have on the left, you have the lower level, and on the right, you have the main level. And the lower part of that picture shows the front of the house, and the upper part of the picture actually depicts the back part of the house, or the rear of the home. Next slide. This is the proposed new floor plan that would show the depiction of on the left of the patio, and on the right side, you would see the main level, which has the garage with the steps leading down to the patio, as well as the deck and the sun porch, or would be the three-season screened-in porch. Next slide, please. Okay, so the retaining wall is to the right there. It's kind of an L-shaped retaining wall. So that's a photo of, yes, you can see where the cursor is. Thank you. Next slide. The next request was to show the type of block that was and the color. So this is a Red River concrete, typical block that's used around the neighborhood for retaining wall purposes. Next slide. This is the front of the home on the left and a photo of the rear of the home on the right. Next slide. This is a depiction of a map, aerial map photo. If you look at the arrow near the bottom in handwriting where it says proposed new deck, this is the home, that's the new construction site where the arrow is pointing there. Sliding to the right, you'll see Laurel Hill House. There's a dot there that shows on the map where the Laurel Hill House is cited. And last is the guard house, which comes in from the right to the dot there in the lower middle area. Thank you very much, Ms. Dress. Next slide. Okay, so this goes back to the roof design, and we will ensure that we address any concerns to ensure that there's no degradation due to inclement weather. I would like to show a area of the home where I think a very similar design would be applicable. If you'd go back I believe it's 3 slides, Mrs. Dressel. One more. Another one. Okay, right here. So if you look at the house to the right of the far left, or let's take the home on the left. If you look at the gabled roof that is connected to the main V-shaped roof, that's a very similar pattern that would be applicable here for the Three Seasons room. It would make contact with the roof up top where the gutter would meet it about 3/4 of the way down, and then that water would run onto a gutter that comes down to the ground. Those are all my comments. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, sir. Before we get to our questions, obviously I've got to ask if there is any member of the public that has any statement they'd like to make to the application. Denise, do we have any comments from members of the public on this one?
I see no hands raised and nothing in chat. Wait, hang on. No, nobody's in chat. Thank you.
Okay. I would also indicate, if we're following our protocol, that we've received letters from the HOA approval, the Lorton Heritage Society, as well as VDHR's approval letter in our packet. Seeing that there's no public comments, we have those letters on file. I'll go to members for questions, and we'll go around the room again. Ms. Aubrey.
I would like to thank the applicant for his follow-up on all the questions. I have no questions or concerns. I'm fine with the application as it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, Mr. Burton, thank you very much for the additional information. You've answered all of the questions that I raised when you were here at the workshop. And you also, I think, inadvertently confirmed my concern about labeling the front elevation and rear elevation of the house. The tradition is the front elevation is the street elevation, and the rear elevation is the backside or the in your case the porch elevation. And that was labeled differently on your sheet 4 of the initial application, which is what prompted my question. So no harm done. Just wanted to clarify where that question came from. Other than that, I think the project is just fine with the additional information provided. I am fully in support of it.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you, John. Ms. Wan.
Mr. Chairman, I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kalinsky.
I think the new addition is going to help soften a lot of the hard surface brick that we see. I know this is a former prison compound, but it's nice to see a little relief. So I'm all for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Murray.
I have no questions or comments.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Orr.
Yes, just a couple of notes, and it's really more for staff. I'm sure that they would appreciate. I know that these are schematics, but on your low-level proposed floor plan, we're going to see some posts in the bottom of the stairs and some things like that, which will help people get oriented and understand a little bit better what's going on the lower level. So when you finalize this, if you don't mind, putting those items on as you would, a proper rendering, that would be great. Staff would appreciate that.
Okay, so Mrs. Dressel, Do
Yes,
you
Mr.
have the, okay, we have a drawing of the prior presentation that has those posts identified on the original presentation last week. I think we have that available for you if you want to see it.
Just make sure that's part that what goes to staff, you know, for them to have.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Got
Thank
it.
you.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, thank you, Ms. Orr. Mr. Plumpy, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had sir, it was a great presentation. Thanks for the clarification, especially the retaining wall. I'm the one who brought up the retaining wall, what this one looks like. Could you, Denise, bring up the current design of where the proposed retaining wall is in retrospect to the house? I think it was in the previous presentation, because my concern here is I would prefer seeing the proposed retaining wall of the addition match the existing wall that is there, which is natural stone, versus a precast concrete reddish color segmented wall.
Okay, I just want to be clear now. The board member, I've forgotten, forgive me, I've forgotten who asked the question.
That was me, Joe Plumpy.
Okay, Mr. Plumpy, the retaining wall is not next to our home. I just want to make sure you understand that. Our home is on the far left.
Correct. Far left meaning in this picture, the house on the far left. But it's still in that picture, they would be both seen at one glance, such as your camera shot is. So I understand it's not up against it, but it is in the same visual context. So I have a real issue with having a drastically different retaining wall that is from the existing retaining wall that's out there. I would only approve this if the wall would match the existing wall that's there.
Okay, are we speaking of, I'm not building a retaining wall, so.
Don't you have a freestanding wall of some sort? Because you mentioned in your presentation there was a retaining wall with the red segmented wall. I guess maybe for clarity's sake, could we see your proposed design again? Maybe it's been a month, so maybe.
Yes.
Sure.
I understand what you're saying, sir. I think I do anyway. Mrs. Dressel, can you bring up the last presentation we made in November? I think it will show a picture of what he's speaking of.
Yeah, I think I found it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise.
I was just had to search for it.
Sorry to belabor the point, but it's
no problem. It's a seating area around the patio, I think you're referring to.
It's a freestanding seat wall then, I take it.
Is this it?
Keep going. Yeah, hold on right here.
Yep.
Rick?
Okay.
Well, yes, I was, I mean, frankly, again, some board members may differ with me, but it is still a wall that's in the landscape that is, still with an eye shot of the other. I know it goes with your vernacular of your house and so forth. To me, I guess I would still rather see it match the retaining wall portion that's out there now, because you see them in context, even though it's not retaining, is still part of the landscape and visual contents. If it wasn't such a sensitive property in Fairfax County, I would probably not be so concerned. But I just want things to be going together. You're gonna have enough differentiation with your paving that's out there, which is great. Your house, your trim on the house, and the outside porch. So I would still push for that, unless the only way I would say I would only approve something differently. Again, this is just me. You got other board members that can push me over the edge here, but would be if you constructed that freestanding wall to match the brick of your house, to build it masonry wise, versus adding a third element, which is this segmented wall, which I'm not a big fan of that to begin with. So if you're trying to win me over, you're not going to with this concrete segmented red wall. I think I'd either only go with the stone that is in the existing landscape now, or the brickwork of your house to match the brick, so it all looks homogeneously. I think the segmented wall material is just too foreign looking, and scale wise and everything, it just doesn't feel good with what you're trying to do. You spent so much time and effort with everything else, but something like this it's an economical solution. I know it is, but I just think from a design aspect and from aesthetics standpoint, as people see this from a distance, I think it's best to do it in the same material as your home or the same material as the stone retaining wall. That's all I have. That's all I want to comment. That's all.
So the retaining wall is a retaining wall material.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not patio material.
Well, but that same material, sir, can be done for any kind of walls. It just happens to be faced with stone and retaining wall. Retaining wall can be made out of wood, stone, brick, sticks, whatever. So that material can be used for your wall right now that you have in your sketch, or you definitely can use your building brick to do it as well. I mean, it's a masonry wall versus a stackable unit wall. That's all.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that this would be applicable to any stone that's part of the patio?
No. Just the vertical portion of it. So the vertical freestanding walls that you show there, the fire pit, you can do what you want. The fire pit, I think, to me, if I do a lot of designs similar to this, is I would kind of make it all work together. Or the fire pit could be something all by itself. Could be a piece of furniture, for instance. And I'm designing for you, and I should not. But I'm thinking that outside wall, at a minimum, would like to be, in my opinion, to match the house brick or the retaining wall. So it just looks, so it's not a disruptive view. That's all. That's it.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Sure, thank you.
Mr.
Zellman.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, regarding Mr. Plumpy's concerns, could we show again the photograph that Mr. Burton provided that shows the expanse of the three houses and the retaining wall on the right?
Sure. Denise, can you go back to that?
There you go. Okay. Mr. Burton, what you described was that this was a precast concrete tinted red retaining wall, and that's not what I think I'm seeing in this photograph. So can you confirm what that material actually is?
Yes, so I showed a picture of the block and a picture of the retaining wall, a little bit more of a closer up, right? So around now Van Meter built my home, but it wasn't part of the infrastructure. Elm Street laid in the infrastructure. And so these retaining wall stones are all around the neighborhood wherever there needed to be a resolution of perhaps an erosion problem or something of that nature. There's several walls around the neighborhood that Elm Street basically fortified with this type of block.
Okay, so that was a given condition at the time that these things were constructed.
Yeah, they were there before any of the homes were built. That was just part of the infrastructure.
Okay, so Joe, those are probably designed by engineers.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, actually, we were involved with this project, and you're right, it was by the engineer. But your picture, again, it's been a long time, but that doesn't look like red to me. What your picture showed with the block, I agree with Mr. Burns. It seems like
I just think that over time, the block which I showed is the stone that I understand is there has just turned colors.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me ask you this question, $1 million question. It's not $1 million, but a question. Would you ever consider building that wall around your patio the same brick that matches your house, which I think would look exquisite, actually, as opposed to a concrete segmented wall?
Would I consider using that stone?
No, consider the same building brick that your house is made of to build a brick wall, seat wall that is made of the same material, or a bluestone wall.
So we considered Mrs. Drezel. Would you show them all of the materials that we considered for the construction? It's in the same slide deck that yes. So just scroll up, I believe it is, up or down. Yeah, so hold up right. Right here. Okay, so.
That looks great. I mean, if you use any of those, that's great, but not that red precast stone that you showed. I'm fine with any of those.
Joe, I don't think he's using that red precast stone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he said he was. I thought he said he was going to match the. Okay.
No.
Then I wasted too much time here. I will.
We
I must
asked
say.
for him to identify what that stone was.
I'm
over there.
sorry. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Oh boy. I apologize, guys. I will retire right now. I'm going to bed.
No problem. No problem, sir. I appreciate the
I think
explanation.
that is the consequences of us being not in person, because sometimes it is quite easier for someone to walk over and put a finger on a drawing and talk it out. But thank you for working us through that. I still have Mr. Zellman.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm good, thanks.
All right, and I agree with my other members. I think now that we've sorted out that one, because I was trying to make sure I understood what you were doing, because I started questioning myself too. I don't have any other comments as well.
Yeah,
so.
no, the question that I was responding to, came from the November meeting, so that they wanted a picture of the stone.
Well, and to that end, I would say I will echo the comments from the other members. We appreciate your presentation and your point-by-point walkthrough of our comments and telling us how you were able to answer them. We don't always get applicants doing that for us, so we appreciate that. With that in mind, though, I would entertain a motion from any of the members regarding this application.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB-21-LOR-03 located at 9393 Quadrangle Street, Lorton, tax map number 107109D0011 for the proposed installation of a screen porch, deck, stairs, and stone patio as submitted and presented at the December 9th, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of the Memorandum of Agreement for the Lorton-Laurel Hill eligible district.
We have a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr.
Thank you
Zellman.
very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, we still got to vote on it, though.
Okay.
All right. So there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Burton, Denise will get with you following this meeting to confirm our approval. Thank you.
Thank you to all the members. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you, sir. And sorry I raked you over the coals unnecessarily.
No worries. No worries.
Sorry.
All right. Have a good evening.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, you too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Moving onward, we go on to ARB item number 3, ARB 21 EAS01, fence relocation necessitated by FC. Kirby Road Sidewalk Project located at the historic property 8 Oaks, 1825 Kirby Road, McLean. The applicant is seeking ARB approval for the relocation of a fence and replacement of landscaping for the historic property 8 Oaks impacted by the Fairfax County DOT Kirby Road Sidewalk Project. Northern Virginia Conservation Trust holds a conservation easement on this property, which requires ARB approval for changes that materially affect the cultural landscape of the house, including fences and certain vegetation. Josh Frey represents the application. Mr. Frey.
How you doing?
All right, we can hear you loud and clear.
Great. I'm here with my wife, Kathy. And yes, as it basically states, that we have a conservation easement on our property that's owned by the NVTC. And one of the stipulations of the easement is that any external modification to the property will be reviewed by the ARB. The Fairfax County Department of Transportation has started construction on the Kirby Road Sidewalk Project, which is in front of our property, and will require the relocation of our front white fence, which is currently on county property, to within our property lines. The Fairfax County Department of Transportation is willing to cover the cost for the relocation of the fence and basically the relocation of the fence. And we're asking for approval from the ARB to relocate the fence, and ideally for support from the ARB to help us with Fairfax County Department of Transportation and covering costs associated with the replacement of any potential trees or bushes that could be damaged by the construction. I guess next slide, please. So this is the current site plan, and actually I have an updated slide, Denise. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen or not, but the red marking is where the proposed fence would go. Wait,
Sure, you're a presenter now if you'd like to try to share your screen.
okay, share content. It's not showing as able to do
It's
that.
grayed out.
Yeah, it's grayed out.
Hmm.
I don't know how big of a deal is it. I mean, basically that one slot. Well, oh, there we go.
And sometimes it takes a minute for that authority to transfer over.
Okay. Let's see.
Don't abuse your power, Josh.
I won't. Okay. So this is the. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the site plan where the current fence is located here with the thick red line, and the proposed fence relocation is here with the thin red line. This is a view of the fence from our house onto Kirby Road.
If you could make the presentation mode, I think that would help. It's a little.
Oh, here, go like maybe there.
Slideshow. Let's see if is that better?
That is, yes, that would be better. Yes.
Okay. You want me to start over or?
No. If you're showing photos and content, it's a little easier for all of us to see. I just want to make sure we're.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So just showing you pictures. This is the current fence where it stands. These are the bushes. It's outside the bushes. Kirby Road. This is where the sidewalk's going to go. That's to the left of facing the street to the left. This is the same street facing to the right. More of our bushes. This is the new line of where the fence is going to be moved back to.
It's really the limits of construction.
Right. And this is the other side of the property to the right. This is a view from the street as it currently looks. And this is a view where it would be relocated to. And we're asking for approval to relocate the fence and support to have these costs for relocation replaced with any landscaping, anything that the ARB can do to help us would be great.
All right. Thank you, Josh and Kathy. First and foremost, obviously, we obviously ask if there's any members of the public other than the applicant that have a statement either in favor or opposed to the application can present statements. Denise, do we have any members of the public?
I see no comments in chat and nobody's hands raised.
All right. And as this one is an easement, we don't have any statements from officials, commissions, or other departments. So I will go around to our various ARB members and see if they have any questions. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you. I do have a question about the fence. Will they be installing a brand new fence or moving the existing fence? And if they are putting in a brand new fence, how will it look? Will it be the same look and feel as what is there now?
They've agreed to relocate the existing fence. Same fence.
And have they, based on some of your other points here, 2 and 3, I take it, what is the county position on the landscaping that they're going to end up having to remove in order to put the sidewalk down?
They're non-committal.
So that they'll be removing the landscaping, but is there a possibility of the current landscaping actually be moved and still survive? Or would you have to be having all brand new landscaping put in?
We met with the landscaper and his recommendation was replantings.
Yeah.
Replant the existing plants?
To plant new.
Oh, to plant new.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were the only questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, a very simple question. Is the current fence in the right-of-way? And that's why they're allowed to force you to push it back?
Yes.
Yes. In
Yeah,
fact,
okay. I am very sympathetic to that. I have encountered FCDOT in the past, and sometimes they can be pretty recalcitrant about being helpful. But I think a design that is either the same fence moved or a replica of that fence, if it cannot be safely moved or it has deterioration or other issues, would be just fine. In your slide that showed the heavy line demarcating the current alignment of the fence and the lighter red line showing the proposed line, does the fence only extend as far as those lines, or does it go further along the front of the property?
You want me to answer that?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it really only extends as far as the line. There's such heavy foliage. We actually own two lots, 1825 and 1827. And the farther we get into 1827, which would be the red line extending all the way to the left, you can't even get in there. I mean, we'd need to sort of hack away at that foliage to even install the fence all the way over.
Okay, so those two red lines show the current extent of the fence that will need to be relocated.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question. No other comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Moving onward, that brings us to Ms. Swan.
I actually no comments, but I do wonder when Ms. Aubrey mentioned about the tree. This is kind of very tricky condition because it's really in the right of way, so you have no control about it. But most of the time when the tree take down, I think the urban forest needed to have some proof of how many tree take down and then the how many tree needed to put back in. However, it may not your concern anymore because this is in the right of way. So maybe Mr. Pompey have more input on that part. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. And I'll highlight to the members that this is a unique application in its own right because it is associated with an easement that is held on this property. It is not within an HOD, so it is the easement requires the applicant to come to us for approvals. And the project that's necessitating it obviously is not something I think of their necessary choosing. But obviously they're making a change, so they have to come talk to us. That's another factor to keep in mind governing this application. Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, thank you. Have no issue with the project. I feel for the applicants. I know it's going to affect them. I wish there was some help we could give them. Perhaps somebody else knows of something.
Or if there's a therapist on the architectural review board. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be great, but I think they would spend all their time with us first. So.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
I would just echo Mr. Kolinsky's comments and defer to Mr. Plumpy's expertise.
All right, we'll get to him. Ms. Orr.
I'm sorry that y'all are having to deal with this, but I'm fine with what you've come up with.
All right, Mr. Plumpy. Much awaited. Joe, you there?
Sorry, I'll repeat myself. I could be your therapist on this, and as long as you don't have any red segmented walls, I'm good. Just kidding. So anyways, I was going to say that there is no trees behind the road right-of-way line on your property. Is that right? So all the trees unfortunately, are in the road right-of-way of the county. So all that's going to be taken out. There's large trees and all that, right?
Well, there's a large tree that is not in the right of way, but the root structures extend into the right of way.
Is that the far left one?
Yeah.
The 71-280
Let's
tree
see.
survey.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
It's
it's,
not.
yeah.
It actually might be,
Well, in any event, you have some large
it's right
trees.
around there though, but yes.
Okay. And then you have one by your driveway, right? I think
Yeah.
as you come up the driveway. So this is
Yeah.
my concern. As you can see that they are putting a storm sewer in there, a storm sewer in with a drain inlet on the other side of
Right.
that site, which is not there right now. So that's going to require a lot of digging and so forth. So what I would do is try and speak with a private arborist. I can, you can, with any tree company, like In Care of Trees, Ed Millhouse is a private one out of Middleburg, but get someone who has some teeth, who knows the Fairfax County system. And Ms. Juan is correct. The urban forester should get involved, okay, from a county standpoint, because you also have power lines in here too, if I recall, on your side, right? Don't you have power poles somewhere, or am I incorrect in that photograph?
No, that's
So
correct.
where are the power lines in the plan view, real quick? That's hard to tell. Okay, so they're right at your fence line. So, and those power poles will stay in the same location. You don't have to move any to make this thing work.
No, apparently not.
Okay, apparently not. That's good. That's good.
Yes, they're staying in the same location.
Okay, that's good news. So let's go back to the plan view, please, if you could. And they're gonna give you a new light fixture, a new mailbox, all that stuff. Put them on the hook for that.
We don't know. The light fixture, they're saying they're not gonna disturb.
That's be very interesting to see. That'd be I question that because they will do grading around that. You see that dash line with see where the oval 5-6 is, and then there's that dash line. That's the limits of disturbance. So that means they can do anything they want in there on your property, in that line. And but what I would do is, where I was getting at is have a private arborist give a value of the tree that is not going to be cut down, but will have its roots impacted. So they will give you a tree preservation plan. That they should, because they're doing disturbance within the drip line, and the county arborist would be on board with this too as well. And they'd give you recommendations. They just can't take a backhoe or a bobcat and just rip the heck out of the soil and rip the roots. There's specific ways you do grading around an existing tree so it does not get disturbed. I mean, more likely, I'd say you have a 90% chance that the tree will live, no problem. But I just want to put the county, use their sensitivity to your situation, because your front is going to look totally different, as you know. And they are, unfortunately, they can take out anything they want because it's in the road right away. So they're just putting the shrubs. They will not give you any trees. Is that it? Just the shrubbery that's behind your fence? Is that what they're saying?
Right now, they're saying they'll replace the fence and just take out the shrubbery.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I mean, you're lucky you're getting the fence, because they're going to do that as well. But they're doing it as a kind measure. But I think I would definitely try and do what you can to ensure the safety, ensure the integrity of existing trees that will remain. And honest to God, if you wanted to do any transplant of any kind of those larger shrubs right now, I would do that right now. It's very dry right now, but you have a window of opportunity. The plants are dormant. You can move them all back a couple, maybe 5 feet from the new fence, and water them well in, mulch them. I will guarantee you that most of them will survive, because they're dormant. They're like dead plants, but they're not dead, as you know. So
interesting.
See how much money you want to spend. I don't know what kind of trees, the smaller trees are, you could spade up or remove, but just thinking out loud, because it may be more trouble than it's worth. But again, the key thing is get an arborist, but also there's going to be a storm inlet right there. That's what's going to be the ugly sore that you don't have right now. It's going to be not so great. You have a nice pastoral swale. Now you have this concrete box that's probably every bit as 4 feet square with a big metal grate on top of it.
Right.
And fortunately, it's a VDOT standard, because Fairfax County goes with the Virginia Department of Transportation standards, and it's not going to be pretty. But it is what it is. I'm sorry. And they're going to give you a new apron, it looks like, into your roadway, right? It's going to be asphalt. Are they putting curb and gutter on the Kirby Road? No, just the sidewalk. This is just for the sidewalk.
It's just for Well, I
Actually, no, I stand corrected. They are going to do curb and gutter because
yeah,
see that structure above, just below the oval that says 5-3.
yeah.
That is a standard VDOT box, so you'll have a white curb and gutter, so it's fully different. You have a nice asphalt country road. It'll have that good Fairfax County VDOT standard now. So I'm just preparing you for what it is.
Yeah,
And it's
they've done
unfortunate.
this in other sections of Kirby Road, and now they've
Right.
gotten to us.
Yeah.
But of
And
course, with
your other option is you can sell your house and forget about it. But no, I don't think we'd do that. You have a beautiful property. But in any event, ask as many questions and but be prepared. It's going to be quite a bit different. So that's all I'll say. I'm sorry, piece of long-winded, but check the arborist.
yeah, that's
Make sure
great.
make sure they have a good action for the tree preservation of the existing trees, and try and move those plants now if you can. If you want to, give it a shot. Your husband looks like he's pretty able-bodied. Nothing to do during the holidays. Now's a good time to do it. Thank you.
Our son's
Thank
coming.
you.
Our son's coming home from college. Maybe this could
Perfect,
be a
man.
project for him.
It is better than going to the gym, guaranteed.
All right.
Thank you. Great
Thank you.
information.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Zellman.
Well, I'm a lawyer, so I'm far from a therapist. I share my colleagues' concern for your plight and wish you the best, and have no problem with moving the fence to where it's proposed to be moved to.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Zellman. So I've got a few questions, I guess. Obviously, one, I know that the county doesn't have to come to us because they're not the easement holder here. So they're not going to, FCDOT's not going to have to come talk to us about this. I was curious, how old is the existing fence? How long has that one been here for? Any idea?
This is an excellent question. I mean, we don't know, and we don't even know how the fence got initially installed in a right of way in the first place. Maybe just because it would look weird. You know, the property owners adjacent to us have a similar fence line, but we have no idea.
Okay.
But it's in good shape. I don't know if that.
So you preempted my second question of what's the shape of it. So I was curious how well, if it was going to be able to survive being removed and relocated by the county.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's our hope.
We had it kind of, repaired and repainted probably 2 years ago. So might there be some damage? Sure. There might be some damage, but we think it's in decent shape.
Okay. And then I'll observe that obviously the easement really puts an emphasis on the cultural landscape. And I think since the cultural landscape talks about things like paving, grading, terracing, fences, trees, azaleas, and plantings, I think there is value in us, even if it's just opining on the fact that this activity is going to affect trees and then other plantings and shrubs associated with this. I think the approach of moving the fence back and trying to relocate it and if it is damaged in any capacity, replicating exactly what is there in the same style, fashion, and color, I think that's perfectly appropriate. I agree with my colleagues on that. I think the problem is, as everyone said, obviously it's a FCDOT, right-of-way situation. So there are obviously a lot of limitations here, but I would observe that we probably could at least provide a recommendation along with our approval that staff convey the importance of maintaining and continuing to protect the cultural landscape of this resource, which there's an easement held on, which could include efforts to consider relocating or preserving as best as possible plantings and shrubs and trees that would be affected to some capacity. So I think we could I think a member could propose a motion that emphasized that and directed staff to convey that to Fairfax County DOT. I'll observe, however, that's probably the limitations of our abilities would be and encouraging the county DOT to consider this as they are doing this project, that yes, that fence should be relocated. That's one feature that's going to help protect that cultural landscape. But as Joe and others have pointed out, there's going to be other effects by this. So any effort that can be taken to maintain that is going to be in support of an existing easement and a heritage resource in the county. So that's, I think, my 10 cents on it. With that in mind, unless any other members have any other comments, I think I will turn to them for a potential motion. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I can give it a try.
Yes, Ms. Swan.
Okay, my first time. I'll do it. Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve action item ARB-21-EAS-01 located at 1825 Kirby Road, McLean, tax map number 0411280008A1 for the proposed fence and replacement of landscaping as submitted and presented at the December 9, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the material, the proposal is found to meet requirement of deed of gift of conservation easement dated December 6, 2005, owned by Northern Virginia Conservation Trust on the property.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment to it. If you don't
Let
mind.
me get a second on it, and then you can propose said amendment.
Apologize.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. Mr. Plumpy, you have a potential amendment?
Yes, first of all, I'm sorry. I was trying to look for the motion. I was going to make it, but I couldn't find it quick
That's
enough.
all right.
So-
What was your amendment like?
The amendment would be is that the homeowner to consult with a professional certified arborist to have them prepare a tree preservation plan at the cost of the county to ensure the livelihood and the of the existing trees to remain outside of the area of disturbance. That's it. Period. That's
when your first word was that recommend?
Yeah,
the
recommend.
applicant? Okay.
Yes, I guess I can request, but it's up. I can only. I guess we can only recommend. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, you would be to clarify. You would be requesting the applicant do something at the cost of the county. So there would be an operative cost placed on an entity that is not able to act.
I would like to request it then. I think the county should pay for that service, actually.
I understand, but the applicant's the one coming to this application. So we would ask, we're asking them to do something they can't necessarily guarantee.
Okay, then I would recommend, then I guess I
Unless
just have to
Mr.
say
Zellman, you
recommend.
want to opine on that?
I will say, so just do the recommendation as first stated. Thank you.
All right, is that acceptable to the amender and the seconder?
Yes, it is.
Ms. Swan?
Yes.
I'd like to propose a friendly amendment as well, that as part of our approval, ARB staff convey the ARB's recommendation that Fairfax County DOT undertake any considerations as is practical to maintain or relocate shrubs and or trees and plantings to be affected by this in support of the existing conservation easement.
Right.
And I would ask that if that is acceptable by the proposer and the seconder.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion amended twice on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Josh, Kathy, thank you very much, Mrs. Spray. Wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
Thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
all very much. We do feel like we've had some therapy.
And please, Denise will get with you with our approval, and I would recommend use the notations from our meeting as a part of the proof of the recommendations we are providing. Any further discussions with the county.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. We really appreciate
Fantastic.
it.
Thank you all.
Happy holidays.
All right, stay well.
Thanks.
All right. Moving onward into our agenda, we are on to the fourth item for application. This is ARB 21 LKA 01 Verizon Wireless Antenna Installation located at 11400 Washington Plaza West in the Lake Ann Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to install 6 concealed antennas with accessory equipment cabinets at the roof of Henron House. Rick Novak of SiteLink Wireless represents the application. Mr. Novak, are you here with us?
Just a moment, Chris.
Right, I see him in the attendee list, so he just probably needs to be.
I'm having difficult. Oh, yeah, I wasn't a host for a second. Hang on for a second.
Okay, we'll do. All right, Mr. Novak, we'll get to you in just a moment to get you on there. All right, I've seen you've been brought up to panelist level, so you should be able to unmute and speak. Also, just because I think there are members of the public that might like to speak to this item, please indicate that in the chat or the FAQ, so if there are public comments, we can handle those as they come.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
This
Mr. Novak.
I'm Rick Yeah, thank you, Mr. Daniel. I'm Rick Novak from SiteLink Wireless. I am speaking on behalf of my client, Verizon Wireless. I appreciate you all allowing me to apply and to be heard this evening. Before I go any further, I would like to tell you that this is the first step for us in the application process. We have gotten preliminary approval only from the Larka Parent House Condominium Association, the board members, for a preliminary design approval. We have not gotten a final blessing, nor do we have a signed lease as of yet. We were scheduled to meet before the Resident Association Design Review Board. That's been tabled by the Parent House because they have larger issues within their organization, and now they're addressing. So right now, the final lease and the final vote has to be taken place by them before they officially finally approve it. So it's not a done deal. Furthermore, the 2232 application has not been submitted. It was recommended by the board member from Parent House to apply not just for the Resident Association, but also to the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. So that's why at this point, again, this is a preliminary review by your folks. And then from there, there's going to be several other, I have 4 other guests that may speak depending upon the questions that you ask. I have Ben Babalucci's construction manager, Mark Marzullo from Entrex. He is the A&E firm. He's the president. I have Paul Dugan's RF compliance expert, and I have Bill Jones. He's electrical engineer. So depending upon your questions at the end, we will proceed. Now, Ms. Dressel's going to be the one that's going to be doing the sharing. So I asked Ms. Dressel to put on the PowerPoint presentation, the slide number 2, I believe.
All right, Denise, can you do that? And thank you for the additional context there, Mr. Novak, and for identifying the other folks on your team that may be presenting.
Yes, sir.
Denise, are you able to bring up that presentation?
I am. I'm starting it now. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I just wanted to make sure.
We can start with the PowerPoint. I need to explain.
And just for clarification there, Mr. Novak, sometimes it is a little difficult to hear you. You're fading in and out a few times.
Okay, can you hear me now, Mr. Daniel?
Yes, that is a little better.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry about that.
So I need to become a presenter. I'm sorry. I need to take the presentation back from.
And Denise, I see that there's a comment in the chat from Green Martha who says she's indicated she wants to speak.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to get the presentation back from. No, I'm having difficulty sharing my screen. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Well, and just like before, put it in
Yeah.
presentation mode, and otherwise, yes, we can see your screen.
Slide 3, please. The next slide. That's 2. Okay, allow me to explain this map that I have here. As you can see, there's 6 blue circles. They represent the coverage areas that we seek to maintain.
Please, can you make it bigger, please?
Yeah, we're seeing it in presenter mode, so we're actually seeing the notes and slides. So that's
Okay,
what we're
here,
doing.
here.
It's teensy tiny.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Is that better?
No.
Ms. Dressel, you have a copy of the propagation maps in your possession if you choose to pull those up instead.
All right, hang on for a second. I don't know why it's in presenter mode.
Denise,
Yeah.
this is Laura. If you
Display
hit display
settings.
settings,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
switch it, there you go.
There we go. Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russell.
You're
Guys,
welcome.
There, as you see the blue circles, that's blue areas, there are 6 locations. The location smack dab in the middle is our current coverage, where we are attended at the Fellowship House at 11450 North Shore Drive in Reston. This building will be demolished the second quarter of next year. So that's the coverage we're getting with our adjacent sites, as well as the one in the middle, which is the Fellowship House. The building will be torn down. Can you go to the next slide, Mr. Russell? Okay, this slide, the one before it, right there, this is a 1.9 area of coverage that's required by Verizon Wireless. If we do not secure a lease with the Heron House, there's going to be a 1.9 mile area of no coverage for Verizon. So I think that would greatly affect them. There's a couple other carriers on the Fellowship House, which I'm not going to mention right now, that will also have a significant hole in the coverage in that area of Reston. Can you put the third slide on, please? This is with the Heron House in the middle. So you're getting, and the green is also additional coverage. So without me getting into any significant details, you're getting about 1.9 square miles of coverage with the Heron House. So the bottom line is this site is critically important to our network. And I just can't impress upon you enough. So that's the need for the coverage. It's very important. If you could go to the next slide, Miss, the next slide with the photo simulations. Yeah, that's the first location. This is where, as you can see, there's the Heron House, where it says site in the middle, and then where we had taken the photos. You all were emailed photos without the antennas, which I hope you have in your possession. Could you go to the next slide, Mr. Russell, please? This is one from one location. Looks like it's from Lake Ann side. Please disregard anything that says AT&T. They will be applying soon, but since Entrex has done the A&E work for both Verizon and AT&T, they're shown with their antennas, stealth antenna enclosure. But please reference where it says VCW, which is in the middle. That's one sector. That what it's going to look like with our concealed columns right there. Correct. Can you go to the next slide, please? Again, where it says VZW is from this particular location, where another column that we have there currently. There's going to be 3 columns of 2 antennas each. They're going to be concealed in RF-friendly material that look the same color as the existing columns, real columns that are up there. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, this is, you can see Verizon's on the left and on the right. Unfortunately, there's some trees there, but I think you get a pretty good idea of where we're located. And quite frankly, in my opinion, and against my opinion only, it blends in pretty well with the existing columns that are there. And that was the whole intent. Previously, we had a meeting with the Reston board, or not Reston, but Heron House board, approximately a year ago. And we had a previous design that they rejected. So now we came back with this design. They gave us a preliminary okay. It's not a final approval. We have a long way to go. We don't have much leverage or a possibility of moving our sectors anymore, because where we're located is the only way we'd optimize our antennas. So again, these are on the edge of the roof, 14 feet high, and I think they blend in pretty nicely. So at this point, unless you all want to would like to me go any further, that PowerPoint has a lot of building drawings. And if you would go, if you could find the CDs, or if you would care to ask questions now, I can forward you the proper person to discuss whatever questions you may have. And that would be good. It might be easier for you all to make a determination of what your concerns and questions are. And I could have Ms. Dressel forward it to the proper person. Ms. Dressel, if you go to the construction drawings, page 3 of the
Mr. Novak, we're having a hard time hearing you again. You're breaking up again on us.
Okay, could you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, so page 3 of the construction drawings is the roof plan, which I would like to, at least for you to look at to see where Verizon's antennas are located. And might make sense, Mr. Daniel, at this point, if you have any questions about our application, we will.
Well, I think so. Obviously, as this is an application, there's a particular order that we're supposed to follow.
Okay.
But I think I would like a question of clarification, because some of the phrases you've used have made me feel like this is not, you said preliminary and some phrases like that that's made me feel like this was meant to be a workshop item and not a item for action. As it stands, it's in our agenda as an item for action, which means at this point you would be asking for us to approve the item, which at this point would mean we'd want you to go, we first want to hear public comments on it. So I'm trying to make sure I understand if you intended for this to be an item for action, or if you had intended to present it as a workshop session that would then entail you to have questions, like you're saying, a back and forth discussion. So if you could give me a little more clarity on that, I might be able to help a bit more.
Yeah.
If you're talking, we can't hear you at the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to have an item for action based upon the recommendation of one of the board members for me to present an application to you. And also the previous, they just changed board members, but the previous president gave us permission to apply at that point to the rest of the association. Since then, it's been tabled, but you haven't tabled it. We still have to go through a final process with the landlord. So
okay, so if I understand you correctly, the other groups that you have to submit to are looking to hear about our approval or denial before they can be brought up in their boards. Is that?
Well, that's not necessarily the process, or it's really a matter of getting one approval at a time. And if we get your approval, then we can present it to the condo association, the LARCA folks, let them know we got the approval of the antenna locations. We're going to need your approval anyway. We don't really have much flexibility where we place our antennas. This is the second iteration of location for this. So at this point, I think we've complied with the current design that really has no flexibility to realign or relocate the antennas. This is the design.
Okay, so I guess what I would first suggest, if there's any other portion of your presentation that you want to give, I would give that first, because the next thing I'm going to do, if this is an item for action, I'm going to ask if there are members of the public that have comments, and then we would go to ARB members to ask and discuss the application. So if there's anything else you want to present, if you don't have anything, that's fine. We'll then take any public comments and we'll go from there. But if this is an item for action, as you're saying, that's the order I have to follow.
Okay, that's fine. If Ms. Dressel can put up the construction drawings, page 3.
Yes.
That's the roof plan. Please.
Yep. Is this what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Mr. Novak, okay.
Pages. There you go, right there. As you can see, we have antenna locations. At this point, I'd like to have Mark Marzullo from Entrex to explain the locations and why they were put the way they put in the locations that they are. So, Ms. Dressel, can you give the mic to Mr. Marzullo?
He was made a presenter, so he should be able to unmute himself.
Mr.
Good
Marzullo,
evening.
are you there?
Yes, good evening. This is Mark Marzullo. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what we have here is the roof plan of the building. And what Verizon Wireless is proposing to do is to install 3 sectors of antennas and some outdoor radio cabinets and battery cabinets on a frame on the roof of the building. So the plan that you're looking at is the north direction is to the left on the sheet, and the building roof in itself is approximately 7,500 square feet. The stealth enclosures, you see on this roof plan, you see the Verizon equipment and the AT&T equipment, which is really not part of this application, is actually shown. So starting at the bottom of the sheet, a little to the right of center is Verizon's antenna sector number 3. And as you go around counterclockwise on the right side, there's another antenna sector, which is their sector 2 antenna. And finally, on the left side is the sector 1 antenna. Each of these sectors are supporting 2 antennas, 2 radio heads, 1 overvolt protection unit, and the Verizon equipment is located just to the right of sector 1 on a small frame that's approximately 3.5 feet wide, 14 feet long, supported on the building columns. The building itself is a 15-story building, approximately 134 feet to the parapet. The building has a 42-inch parapet or 42-inch high handrails all around the roof. The antennas are situated in the locations that they're shown on the plan because these are the azimuths that RF needs. And the uniqueness of this building is that it has articulated concrete column-like structures protruding above the roof up to in the range of 12 to 18 feet to give it the architectural features that you see from the ground shots that we presented earlier. So in order to have the antennas radiate properly, they have to be positioned directly between these columns, which are again extending to 12, 14, 16 feet above the roof, so that the radio beams protrude between the columns and not generate any interference. So that's why all of the antenna locations are where they are, and that's why Mr. Novak indicated that we don't have a lot of flexibility in moving that around, moving those locations around. All of the antennas are concealed, and they're concealed in an RF-friendly material. The backup structure is a fiberglass material that is also RF-friendly. The antenna tips are approximately 14 feet above the roof level, and they're set again at that height so that they can clear the 42-inch parapet that the building has. So that's the basic layout of the equipment on the roof, why it's in the positions that it is. The radio cabinets are positioned again so that the load from the equipment can be basically supported on columns that are below in the building. With that, I'll send it back to Mr. Novak.
Yes, I mean, at this point, I feel like it was fairly clearly explained where we need to locate these antennas. I think we explained the need for our RF coverage and an antenna installation at the Herod House due to the massive space in between that Verizon subscribers will not have. And it could affect E911 services. So I feel like at this point, you have a very clear idea generally on where we like to go with our antennas, the height of it, reasons for the locations, and the need for coverage. So at this point, I don't believe that we need to further express any additional points. But I would leave it open to the public and then certainly your board.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Novak. I appreciate you walking us through that design as well. And I know you've submitted other materials to us that all the members have. With that in mind, the next thing would be that we would go to see if any members of the public, other than the applicant, either in favor or opposed to the granting application, can present statements concerning the application. I will remind members of the public that I stipulated in a motion at the beginning that we would give folks 3 minutes for any statement. Denise and I will have a timer that we'll have running so that we can keep track of that, so we can keep things in a well-mannered. If there are a lot of comments, we got to keep that in mind. But I think at least we have one member of the public, Denise, that at least indicated they wanted to provide comments.
We do. Grace, I'm going to ask for your help. Can you unmute? There's actually two. Can you unmute Mr. Phillips?
Right, and what I'd ask is, once you're unmuted, please introduce yourself and provide your statement.
Can you do that?
I do not have the power to, I think, because you are the official host.
See, I've lost. I have lost my attendee list. Okay, for just a second.
All right, just a moment, folks, while we work through this technological challenge we're running through right here. I believe Mr. Phillips, as well as Miss Martha or Miss Green. Either way, I think both of you indicated that you would like to provide a statement. We will get you unmuted so you can do so once we get the ability to unmute you.
Mr. Phillips, you are muted.
Oh, yes. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Phillips. Introduce yourself and then by all means provide your statement.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nigel Phillips. I live in Unit 1401 in Heron House. That's about 20 feet from where these antennae are going to be installed. I object to this application for a number of reasons. First of all, as Mr. Novak says, it's a preliminary application. Mr. Novak is very aware that we've had a change of our board at LARCA since November. The previous enthusiasm for this installation may not be apparent in the new board. The process is flawed. This application was reviewed by our Covenant Committee, who were going to provide a board with commentary on the design. Our Covenant Committee is obliged by law to hold public meetings and to provide records. It has done neither. All meetings were held in private by email communication. No records of the conversations are available. I've requested them. My request has been ignored. This is contrary to the Virginia Condominium Act, our own bylaws, and our committee charters within the unit. I believe that our Covenant Committee have applied a double standard. I've pointed out to them that if these antennae boxes were installed on the roof of two of our other buildings, one of which is Chimney House, the other one is Quayside, it would have not passed. And this is a double standard for a site which is on the historical list of sites of historical interest. And I think it contravenes your own bylaws of your own committee by interrupting the profile of Heron House roof. Heron House is the iconic anchor, which mimics that of Tapiola in Finland, which is the actual anchor of the whole of the site. And it's looking at it from a distance. I was actually up by Lake Newport a couple of days ago, and it's very clear that this would significantly impair the profile of the roof. We have a lot of other concerns as well, which may or may not be beyond the remit of this committee. Those are related to resale value of units. And I would like to point out that contrary to the comment made by Mr. Novak, we don't have a landlord. We actually own our condominium through our association. We are not tenants. We are unit owners. And just to make that clear, there have been several studies that have shown that the installation of base tower units can have a deleterious effect on property value. We're also concerned about the safety of our community with the installation of increased antennae and the increase in radiation.
Mr. Phillips.
Mr. No.
Yes,
Okay.
you are at 3 minutes. Sorry, Chris.
I'm sorry, am I still speaking or am I going to be interrupted?
We were reminding you you were at your 3 minutes. You could obviously finish your statement, Mr. Novak.
Yes, well, I submit that this being a preliminary application, that there is significant resistance to this application within the unit owners of the condominium, that you at least table or dismiss this current application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Novak. All right. I believe we had at least one other member of the public. Ms. Martha Green, I believe, indicated in chat that she also had a comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Well, thank you so much. And you can call me Miss Martha. That's what my family does.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
First, I'd like to thank all the members of the board for volunteering to serve on the ARB. Those of us who do this know that you're putting in long hours, so I thank you. I want to echo what Nigel has said. We've had a change in the board. We've had a serious revisioning of this whole proposal. I'd like to clarify that the RADRB did not return this application because they were waiting to hear from ARB. They returned it because the previous board did not complete it correctly. They had 2 signatures instead of 3. The current board also cannot find what the preliminary approvals are that Mr. Novak referenced. So we have a lot of concerns here, churning and boiling around concerning this proposal. The reason that the 2 reasons that are most relevant to your review of it are that a significant number of members do not believe that our roof can support this installation. I looked at the report done by Verizon, but the very first page gives a number of assumptions which are not reasonable assumptions. The building plans they're looking at are not as built. They're not accurate in many, many ways. And their other assumptions are also cannot be assumable. The members' concerns fall into 2 large categories. One is that we do not believe this roof can support it. I happen to own 80% of the immediate area underneath this roof. I own 3 of the 4 apartments underneath the roof. And I can tell you that the roof is fragile. It leaks, it weeps. We reseal those cracks and new ones appear. We need a lot more study to confirm that this roof could hold that amount of weight. Nigel has more information on this. He wasn't able to provide it. The second major concern is we are not convinced that this will not jeopardize our standing as a historically designated property. We believe that the physical changes are not insignificant. And this is very important to us because it represents a source of funding to pay for significant infrastructure repairs over the next 10 years. So in summary, I agree, Chris, with what you said. I think this is a workshop session item, and I think that was a great idea. If it's not, then I will say that I do not support this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Denise, are there any other members of the public that wish to provide a comment?
If there are, they have not indicated so in the chat or in the Q&A. And if you'd like to make a
comment, please do so. Please let me know in the chat. I see nobody rising, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Denise. Again, if someone has indicated, if you haven't gotten Denise, our apologies. We're working with the platform which we have to work with. Next, we will go around to board members to see if there are any questions for the applicant, starting with, of course, Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since I'm the archaeologist on the group, I am really most concerned about what happens down 15 stories down below at the ground. But I will say that with the issues that have been raised by two people who live who are owners of the unit, and from other information we have acquired, and just my own reading of the material presented, it seems that there are many questions still up in the air that need to be fleshed out. And so I would prefer that the applicant withdraw this application for today as an action item, and that we can consider it after further work is done at a future time as another workshop.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I am deeply troubled by this application. I can understand that Verizon may be panicked about losing their current antenna locations, but I don't think defacing Heron House is in the best interest of everyone involved. May I share my screen, Denise? What I have done is I have combined some existing condition photographs with the proposal that the Verizon folks submitted to us, so that you can see side by side what the existing conditions are and the proposed conditions are, using the materials that were provided to us. So can I share?
Yes, Mr. Burns, I've made you presenter.
Okay, let me see now. It's this one I want to share.
All right, your screen is appearing, John. So we have not yet
Okay,
seen the
so
content on it, but it is saying there you go. All right. Yes.
Okay. So what you're seeing now is the aerial photograph that was provided to us, as well as the key map that shows where the various photographs were taken from. Now, the key thing I want to share with everyone is this is, if you can see my cursor, existing conditions are on the top, and the proposed conditions are on the bottom. And as you can see, you're seeing significant changes to the roof line of the building. And this is just simply the first of the photographs. And then a second time, again, you see the rather large box. And by the way, we have to keep in mind that apparently Verizon is not the only carrier of wireless services that's affected by the demolition of the adjacent buildings and loss of that antenna location. So if we approve this, we're going to see these other ones come in as things to be considered. This is photograph number 3 in their consent. And again, you can see the boxes that are popping up above the roof line here. And then the last photograph, again, you're seeing the new boxes. I'm a little concerned that the word stealth was used in describing these enclosures. I would hardly call them stealthy. They're pretty prominent. They alter the roof line of a prominent, iconic part of a historic part of Reston. And so I think that these, this is at best a preliminary assessment, a preliminary proposal. I don't see anything in the presentation so far that shows what the existing antenna are. There are some that are previously approved. I know Sprint has one. I don't know if the other 2 carriers have one or not. And there's no explanation as to why those existing antennas can't simply be augmented, because as you can see from the existing condition photographs, whatever's up there now is not prominent. These things will become prominent. And then as a last question, I want to ask, are these temporary antenna proposals? until you can replace the loss of the antennas for the buildings that are going to be demolished? Or are these proposed as permanent changes to the roof line of Heron House?
Yes.
And with that, I will stop sharing.
All right, Mr. Novak, I wasn't sure. I think you may have been beginning to answer, but we couldn't hear you for a moment there.
Yes, it is a permanent installation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
That being the case, Mr. Chairman, I would vehemently oppose it as it is currently configured.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. Wan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a few comments. What I hear was they feel like they have to secure the lease with this tower in order to solve the loss of the current location and provide the coverage. I found a little bit upsetting because if this tower is your only solution, then the solution coming from the statement coming from a tech giant company was kind of upsetting. That's the first feeling I have. The second is, during the presentation, when I see the photo with the new case goes onto the roof, and the statement I hear is blended into tree nicely. I totally disagree with that statement. If the antenna on the skyline is blended into tree nicely, then the entire tower would be blended into tree nicely. I don't think that was the case. The third is really my major concern. Well, my understanding is this is quite some construction going on the roof, and the building is concrete, and it's a historical building, and it's old. So the tool have to go up to the roof. The heavy material have to go up the roof, and they are drilling and they are hammering. Labor gonna go up to the roof, and they was fully trained and skillful to deal with a historical building like this. That would be my major concern as well. That's all my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wan. Mr. Kolinsky.
Okay, all right, thank you. Question for the applicant, and I apologize if I didn't see it, but is there a structural analysis of the building that has been completed, showing the weight of the new equipment and its location on the building and the condition of the building?
Yeah, can you hear me, Mr. Zielinski?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we sent a structural analysis to, I sent it to the vice president of the condo association. I sent her a copy of the structural analysis for the roof.
Okay, and is that something that was part of this application, or
No, sir, it was not part of the application.
Okay, well, I think that is one of the most, obviously one of the most critical factors of this work, and I think Ms. Wong has a good point about the actual construction will cause some additional stress temporarily on the roof as things go up. Is anything being removed from the roof as part of this application? In other words, are you replacing anything, or is it just all new equipment being added?
Yes, sir, this is a new application, so everything would be new.
Okay, and besides the Sprint antenna, as I understand it, up there, are there any other? And I don't know if this is directed toward the applicant or to Denise. Is there any other service provider who has an antenna on the roof already?
Well, Sprint is currently on the roof with one column. It's the tallest structure on the roof with Sprint's antennas that's enclosed. They call it stealth or conceal. That these are generic terms that we use in our industry. So
Okay.
Sprint's already up there. And I know there'll probably be at least one more application besides Verizon Wireless, but I can't speak on their behalf.
Okay, so we, yeah, I mean, and that's one another concern with my board. Whatever we ultimately approve, we're faced with the fact that it'll probably be twice that, if not more. Once the precedent is set, it's going to be hard to it's going to be hard to say no. And you know, your drawings seem to indicate future AT&T enclosures, so that it's something that I think it needs to be factored in here. And Mr. Novak, one last question, I think, is the concealment enclosure. How high above the roof do they stand? You were
I believe the top of it's 14 feet. But there's 42 inches of walls on the exterior of the roof. Mr. Marzullo, do you care to comment?
The stealth enclosures are 14 feet tall, and the exterior parapet walls of the building are 42 inches.
okay. All right, and Mr. Marzullo, do you know the approximate height of the building?
Yes.
You referenced that earlier. If you could remind me, please.
Yeah, the penthouse is 154 feet 7.
Do you know what to the top of the roof is?
The top of the chimney that is the Sprint concealment's 160 foot 10, and the parapet is 134 feet. These are all dimensions above the first floor level.
Okay. All right. So the concealment enclosures roughly adding another 10% to the height of the building.
Yeah, and the size of those enclosures, just to clarify, they're 6 feet 4 inches wide and 4 feet deep.
Okay, so so 6'4" by 4 foot structure, approximately, or 14 feet tall, not approximately.
Correct.
Sorry,
Correct.
14 feet tall.
That's correct.
Okay, just trying to get that image here. Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kolinsky. Ms. Murray.
A lot of people, have already used my words. I'm going to use my status as the person who's been around longest for this to know that when we approved the first stealth antenna, it was truly on the roof of the Heron House. It was truly a stealth antenna. And when it was augmented, the augmentation was stealth. These are just not stealth except for in your term of art. A lot of care was given to the placement of the original antennas. And these antennas are jarring to the architecture of the building. I agree with all the design elements that people have raised. It will not be harmonious with the building. And it definitely, in terms of our mission, it will not enhance the Heron House. So if the applicant doesn't withdraw the application, I would definitely vote to deny.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Orr.
I think one of the things that should be required is a very careful documentation of the condition of the existing structure, so that if this moves forward, if there's any kind of cracking, any indication, then it's their responsibility to fix it and not on these homeowners. I just really feel for them facing this added weight to a structure that was not designed for that. And I think in the climate that we have now, gosh, I just can't I can't approve of this for that. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Orr. Mr. Plumpy. Again, like poor Miss Murray, we are going way above your general area purview and several hundreds of feet.
And that's no problem at all, but it's all at, but even the inchworm can see it all from way up there. Basically, I have a solution. Let's all go to landlines and we'll be okay. But the thing I wanted to say is that I think a while back, maybe a year ago or so ago, I think the ARB was, I don't know if it was Verizon or other people, or maybe it was the county just, hey, these are coming our way, these antennas that we're going to put on top of power poles and so forth, along roadways and whatnot. So I'm asking this question to the applicant is this the only solution? And I would think there's always more than one solution to anything. Some cost more money, some are not feasible, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just wondering, is there enough light poles and so forth in this area to put them on light poles that are less obtrusive than up in the sky in this particular application, but still gives you the range broadcast that you need to do? You're going to need probably more antennas because it's not as high. I'm just throwing that idea out there because, honestly, God, I cannot support this either. As a landscape architect, it's we do look for aesthetics, and I think this is not the way to go for this building. I think it looks like and when I first saw it, I kind of chuckled and I said, gosh, there has to be something else. So I just was curious to see if there's another solution that you guys thought of that would not be on the building. And I know that takes away lease from the owner of the building, but can we put them on poles, power poles, or street light poles or whatever?
Is that a question?
Yes, but if you don't have the answer, I think you're going to end up not getting approved tonight. You always come back and give us that.
Well, Mr. Plumpy,
Plumpy, yeah.
Yeah, what you're, I guess, asking is for an alternate locations other than Heritage.
Yes.
I'd have, as far as what are our other alternatives, I would say we'd have to get back to you.
Sure.
I would also say my understanding of to put antennas on, say, a new monopole is not likely within the Ruston Association.
No.
It wouldn't be accepted or approved. And there's no other structures at this point that are high enough to meet the RF objectives in that vicinity.
Okay, so you could not do the 40-foot streetlight poles or something like that lines the streets?
Sir, at this point, that's not an option for Verizon.
Okay, all right. I just asked the question.
Based upon our discussions in these meetings, I'll have to report back to our client to give an update, and we knew there was some opposition, but agreeing from who, that was still subject to question. So I'm just, I appreciate your input.
Okay, no problem. Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Zellman.
Well, I think from my perspective, I'd go back to something that I think the chairman raised earlier, that about having preliminary approval from the board. It does concern me as, I practice law and I represent, I deal with some HOA matters. And so changing of a board, that's an important thing. But what I think is more important is that if we were to approve something tonight, and there's only preliminary approval from the association, then something has to get changed. It's going to have to come back here anyway, depending on what would get changed if there's this preliminary approval doesn't get met. It just seems at best to be too soon to be here. But I have a lot of questions, some of which have been echoed, but I do have a concern with it being preliminary in nature and with whatever change there was to the board. If I could probably be more persuaded if the new board were going along and confirming with whatever the preliminary approval was from the board, and then I would certainly rely on my colleagues who have architectural experience about what could be done. But those are my concerns at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zellman. So I will. I get last round. One thing I'll point out is that in our bylaws, as we go through applications for consideration, following members of the public are statements or arguments submitted by official commissions, departments of the county, as well as any state, local preservation organizations, neighborhood associations can be presented to the ARB for our consideration. So an important thing to keep in mind from my thoughts on our bylaws is that we like to know the views of all those parties in mind before we make a decision. So I would reiterate that the comment preliminary gave me great pause when it was brought up, because there really isn't a preliminary review by this board. There are workshop sessions, and then there are applications for action. So if we take an application for action, it is either obviously approved, denied. We could vote to defer it if an applicant was so moved to see that, but otherwise in a workshop session, it's more of a design discussion, which we normally would have. So in my mind, the views of those other groups are a little bit critical for us to help make our decision here. I'd also agree to echo my colleagues' points about the effects to the property. If we go looking at the guidelines for Lake Ando, we're updating them right now. If you go to the original ones, they still go back to the Secretary of Interior standards. And I think looking at that, the proposed stealth enclosures disrupt the rhythm of Hen Run House in the fashion that it has. And John actually got to what I was doing on my screen while we were talking, was laying over those two photographs side by side. And I think any future application, if this does not go forward tonight, would need to really present that to us clearly so we could see the effect of that. The photos you shared after the fact were very helpful so we could see that, but the new additions disrupts the rhythm that was intended in the design of the top of Hen Run House. It has this up and down kind of flow that kind of suggests a constant change. With the proposed new enclosures, I'm seeing a little bit more of a uniformity as opposed to a pattern or a sequence that's going across it. So that's kind of something that would, to me, does not seem very conducive with the standards, let alone the original intent of the rooftop there and what one would see walking around in the street or in the quay area. I guess a question I would have is about the new Lake Ann house. And I know you mentioned that obviously with the demolition of the existing structure, you're going to lose a location. Is there a reason we can't put something or some structure on that new building that's being built across the way?
Mr. Daniel, the new building has been under consideration. The problem with it, it's on significantly lower ground elevation, and basically a couple of sectors will shoot into the trees. But under the circumstances and what I'm hearing this evening, this application, whether you consider preliminary or not, appears to be about the design of the rooftop. And I really am not, we can go back and see if there's any other designs, but from all indications from your ARB group, that the design just doesn't meet the makeup of what you're hoping to approve. So I would like to defer. But by the same token, there's some serious questions that we have to ask internally at Verizon. And but your message from your board members, from the ARB, has been pretty loud and clear. And I don't think there's any mincing of words that's taking place here. I would request that you defer it, and then I will get back to you in the future to see if there's any other alternatives to the roof.
All right. Well, before we do that, I have one or two other suggestions, obviously, for a future application, for resubmission, if that's the intent you're taking. I agree with my colleagues about the engineering. If that information has been provided to LARCA and other boards, I would suggest as part of any future application to us, sharing any information or analysis on that would be helpful to support any application on this. I think, obviously, given the current climate we're looking at with the property in this HOD and the fact that there are concerns about the exterior materials of those buildings, I would want to be assured that anything that was being done, even if the design was something that I was comfortable with, did not exacerbate any conditions that are currently taking place. So I want anything that's going to happen to be enhancing of historic properties, and that even relates to properties that may be suffering material problems. I don't want that to add to the additional condition concerns. So whatever comes back to us with deferral, I hope that can also bring that information into context with us.
Okay, so are you suggesting that you would prefer to have, if it's possible, to get the board members and the association from the Heron House approval on another design, if that's possible, before we come back to you?
I am not going to suggest to recommend that one board or another we require their approval. What I'm indicating is that knowing about the engineering concerns or the engineering questions is going to be really helpful. So that information that you've shared with LARCA is something that I think we also would like to see. I think Mr. Kalinsky brought it up, as well as Mr. Burns, I believe, mentioned it briefly. So that information would be helpful with any future application if it's taking place on top of this building. So that's something. Obviously, if one of those other local boards or associations has given approval, that information is always valuable to help inform us, as some of the earlier applications today had letters of support from various societies or organizations. That's always additional context to help inform this board. So that's always helpful. But I'm not going to dictate what another board or commission or association should or should not do based on their own authorities. But as you said, you've gotten a very clear reading from the members here that this application is likely not to get approved if we take it to action. And so, as I understand it, you're requesting that we vote to defer it to a later submission.
Is correct. And although perhaps even if we were to vote tonight, the bottom line is that regardless of which way we turn this application, the design just does not appeal to the ARB. And I think that's what I have to present, besides the structural issues, which I believe it sounds like the folks feel like the physical structural analysis is purely theoretical and not accurate, but the design is not meeting your qualifications. So it's been very fruitful tonight for us to present it to you, rather than wait 6 more months to see if even the folks that still have to vote on this thing are still interested. So I think we accomplished quite a bit tonight. I don't believe in putting a circle in a square or a square in a circle. So I think that's what we accomplished tonight. I think I want to thank the board members, the ARB, for their time this evening. And life has never revolved around me. I value our client, and I think this information needs to be passed on, and we need to come up with an alternative plan. But I would like to defer for now, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Novak. One suggestion, or Mr. Burns, do you look like you might have had a comment to add? Yes.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chairman. The Heron House and Lake Ann Condominium Group recently got a report from Fairfax County that said that they're facing $37 million of needed infrastructure repairs to their properties. And since this is both a historic overlay district and also on the National Register of Historic Places, they're potentially eligible to take advantage of the Virginia tax credits for preservation, as well as the federal tax incentives for preservation, both of which would entail review by VDHR, Virginia Department of Historic Resources, and the National Park Service to earn those credits. And you would need approval from both of those agencies. And there's a strong financial incentive for the condo associations who want to pursue that, because potentially between the two of them, it's as much as 45% of the allowable construction costs could be deferred. And so you have to weigh that against whatever lease income that the Heron House folks may gain from the lease to Verizon and or AT&T. So just want to make you aware of that potential concern that the condo association is going to have in moving forward with this proposal. Thank you.
That was conveyed by the vice president of LARCA. It was conveyed to me, that very point you just made.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. And the only other suggestion I was going to make as we vote to defer this item is that following future discussions with your client, a future solution, if you feel like you have a design that may warrant further discussion with the ARB, you may want to consider presenting as a workshop item, because we can talk about it in a more, I would say, informal fashion that doesn't require an action to vote on it if you have the time to afford that in the future with a design changes and such. It's similar to what we did now, but a little less rigorous in the walkthrough processes that I had to do.
Yes, sir. This was very productive this evening.
All right, I would, as the applicant has indicated they would like a motion to defer, I would look for a motion to defer this by any of the members.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB defer action item ARB-21-LKA-01 located at 11400 Washington Plaza West in the Lake Ann Historic Overlay District, tax map number 0172-311502A for the proposed installation of 6 concealed antennas with accessory equipment and cabinets on the roof at Heron House, as submitted and presented at the December 9th, 2001 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is deferred as not currently meeting the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101-historic overlay districts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. The item is deferred to a future meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Novak, as well, Mr. Marzello, for your time and your presentation.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
folks. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you as well to any of those members of the public who provided comment. I appreciate your time and presence at this meeting as well. All right, that takes us out of our items for action. Robust round this meeting in December. Normally we'd have some cookies and stuff to celebrate the holiday season. I miss that dearly. Oh well. Maybe my wife will bring me some from upstairs. Anyways, that moves us on to the workshop session. There you go. I added that to the meeting minutes for our meeting. That's going to be great. Items for workshop. We move on to number 5, ARB 21 MTA 01, demolition of tenant house at Mount Air. Within the Mount Air Historic Overlay District, the applicant is proposing to demolish the tenant house previously approved for demolition by the ARB back in 2003. Dr. Kroll represents the application. Liz, are you with us?
I am with you. I apologize that my video is not working right now, so you'll have to deal with just my voice. And Denise, trying to share content and it doesn't seem to be working, so I know you have a copy of my PowerPoint. If you could share that, please.
I'm going to get it up in just a minute, Liz. Sorry about this.
Yeah, no problem. I tried sharing it, but nothing happened.
There we go.
Okay. For those of you who may not know me, I'm the Archaeology and Collections Branch Manager for the Park Authority, and we're coming to you yet again to ask permission to demolish the tenant house at Mount Air Historic Site. Next slide, Denise, please. Again, the Mount Air was the home of the McCartys, a prosperous Virginia family who occupied the property until 1860 and had a large plantation, which is, would have been represented by a much larger than the current property that we have. After the McCartys no longer owned the property, it was purchased by Aristides Landstreet, and he had fought for the Confederacy, and he and his descendants lived on the property until 1914. Next slide, please. It was purchased by George Shirley Kernan in 1914, and she lived on the property until her death in 1962. And her daughter Elizabeth Enox occupied the property until 1992, and shortly after that, it was destroyed by fire, which, by the way, is still an open arson case. And it was acquired by the Park Authority in 1998. And at the time of acquisition,
he said let me just
the property included several.
And everyone who is not talking, please mute. We're kept picking up some mic layover. Sorry, Liz.
Okay, no problem. And at the time the property was acquired by the Park Authority, there were several standing out buildings, and there's the remains of the Mount Air property and archaeological resources on the property. Next slide, please, Denise. Now, this is a timeline of Mount Air. We've come on a number of occasions to the ARB to discuss the property, and I think, Denise, we can move to the next slide. And this is a copy of a letter from Linda Blank. It's dated January of 2010, January 28th. And at that point in time, this letter indicates that the ARB had approved the demolition of the property of the tenant house at that time, and regrettably, and also refers to the copy of the approved plan for demolition. However, at that time, financial considerations were such that within the window of where of the application, the Park Authority did not move forward with the demolition, and our permission expired. And it had expired one other time as well. So we are coming back again. I can tell you I've been assured by our Planning and Development Division that there is funding to conduct demolition if approved at this time. The next slide, Denise. And this is a map that shows the property and the tenant structure on the property that shows it, and that was the map showing the structure to be demolished. Next slide, please. If you look at some of these, and I have several photographs of existing conditions out there, the tenant property is in very derelict condition. I started as an employee with the Park Authority in February of 2003, and at the time when I went to the site, there were two structures on the property. I was interested, among others, in looking inside, and the tenant property was one of them. And in 2003, I was told that the condition of the building was such that our safety officer would not allow us to go inside. So it has continued to deteriorate since that time. Denise, just show the next couple of slides with photographs. Again, showing ivy on a chimney there, and growth. And what customarily happens is that during the summer, when the conditions on the site are incredibly overgrown, it's like a jungle, you'll get the different plant materials growing up on the fences. Our Park Operations Division or Volunteer Corps will come out, they'll remove the growth, and then come back again, and it'll grow back up the next year. So it's hard to keep up with as far as that's concerned. Next slide, please. Now, a couple of things here. There is a National Register form that was done for Mount Air. The property isn't currently listed, but we're hoping, at least I'm hoping, to move that forward to make that a reality. That was done as a mitigation, the preparation of the form for some work at Fort Belvoir. There was a treatment plan that was done for the property in 2002 under the direction of Richard Sacchi, who was the Park Authority archaeologist at the time. And the recommendation of the treatment plan indicated that the tenant house was not historic and should be demolished. It didn't contribute to basically the historic nature of the other things that were out there were more related to the use of the property the 19th and early 20th century, 18th, 19th, and early 20th century. And the tenant house itself was constructed as a two-car garage. It was constructed using materials that were left over from some World War I construction that had occurred on the property. And it was used basically as a caretaker because the 20th century occupants of the property traveled, and they did have a caretaker staying on site. Now, at this point in time, we are only requesting that the Architecture Review Board consider the demolition for the tenant house, not the barn at this time, although we have done phase 1 archaeology across the property and in the area both of the tenant house and the barn. And the area that surrounds the tenant house, there were no intact archaeological resources discovered. However, in the area of the barn, there were archaeological resources. So before any kind of proposed demolition could be done for that, there would have to be further archaeology. But prior to any demolition activities on the property, as far as the archaeology is concerned, and we did do that in compliance with the zoning ordinance, we would block off areas that have known or archaeological resources or other cultural resources, and we would have an archaeologist present on site to monitor any demolition activities. So that's this is our plan at this point. I think this is my last slide, Denise. But in any case, I was looking to bring this to you again, asking for the Architecture Review Board's comments, but we would like to come forward in the January meeting with an action item for the demolition of the barn, the tenant house and property.
All right, thank you, Liz. I think we don't have all the cameras on, so I'll go around the room again. We'll go to the person who has the most interest in the ground now, from going up high to down low. Back to you, Miss Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Liz, for the presentation and the clarification for all of us of the history of twice coming before the board. And hopefully this will be the third and last time. What they say, a third time is a charm. I do appreciate the fact that you've clarified that the structure, even though it's called a tenant house, actually was built as a garage in the, I believe it was in the middle 20s or early 20s,
1923.
Yeah. And so it clearly is not a part of the time frame of the historical significance of the Mount Ayr plantation property. And also, it was good to hear that there has been at least an initial phase 1 archaeological survey, and that the plan would be to have a monitor there during the removal of the structure, just as a precaution in case something was found, and also just to ensure the protection of areas that are archaeologically sensitive. So with that, I really don't have any questions. I'd like to see the project proceed. I mean, I live somewhat near the site, and I have been to the site, and I know it's there's a chain link fence around it. It's been there for years, probably since before 2003 when you started working. And it's something that hasn't had any maintenance or anything put towards it to try and preserve it, and it probably is definitely time to take it down. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've been around long enough. I was here in 2003 and was one of the people who said it was okay to demolish this building. I am presuming that it has received no maintenance whatsoever, and so is in more severely deteriorated condition than it was in 2003, entropy being what it is. I do observe, however, that a 1923 garage would have been erected to protect a substantial investment by the then owner in vehicular travel. And I just want to make sure before you tear it down, you make sure there's nothing inside that might be worth preserving. Other than that, go ahead.
We'll take that under advisement.
All right, thank you, John. Moving onward, Ms. Wan.
Mr. Chairman, I have no comments.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Ms. Murray.
Back in 2003, I didn't have a vote, so I could only support it. At this time, I would definitely vote. This time having a vote, I would vote to demolish it. I think it's time, past time.
Thank you, Elise. Ms. Orr.
I agree. It's time.
Mr. Plumpy.
Yes, I agree. It's time also, but as Mr. Burns says, if there's a barn find in there, I'd love to know because I'm a classic car collector. Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
All right, and I will agree with my fellow members. Liz, I look forward to seeing when this one approved. And I wrote that draft nomination back when I worked at Fort Belvoir. So
I'm well aware.
That was a bit of a walk down memory lane when I was looking at all those materials going, wait a minute, who wrote this? Oh my gosh, this guy. So yes, I think if you came back to us at the beginning of the year, we would be happy to approve this. And I'm happy to hear that you've gotten guarantees that there'll be funding to do it. I hate having you to come back here time and time again to keep asking for reapprovals.
Gets to be a little like Groundhog Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Liz. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you in January in 2022.
Have a great holiday.
You as well. All right, that takes us on to our next workshop item, which is ARB 21 MTV01 renovation plan for original Mount Vernon High School, located at 8323 and 8333 Richmond Highway and 4100 Mohawk Lane and 8345 Reddick Avenue and 8405 Mount Zephyr Drive in Alexandria. Did not realize what I was getting into when I read that. The applicant, the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County, seeks a special exception to allow for alternative uses of historic buildings in the original Mount Vernon High School. The ARB has authority to review and provide recommendation over exterior renovations to historic structures under the new alternative use historic building special exception in the zoning ordinance. The applicant proposes the demolition of the portions of the buildings that have not been deemed historically significant and the addition of a welcome center to the rear of the building. Proposed uses include childhood education, gymnasium, teen, senior center, and nonprofit programs. It is a National Register of Listed Places. The applicant is proposing tax credits as well. And Miss Aktula, I probably butchered that, I apologize, and Miss Callahan from Fairfax County Capital Facilities represent the application.
Hi, actually, this is Laura
Oh,
Arsenault. I am going to give a little preview of the use, the brand new use that we're going to look at tonight. And then I will pass it over to Capitol's facilities staff to present. So wanted to kind of introduce this to you all and kick off this use. So exciting new use that came to us this summer. Let's see if I can get this to move forward. There we go. For the alternative uses, let me move Chris off the screen. Okay. For the alternative uses in historic structures special exception, it was authorized in the new zoning ordinance that was passed by the board in 2021. And zoning ordinance administration staff, really Carmen and Casey, who you all well know, coordinated with our staff, and I think we brought it to you once or twice to review this use and how to implement it. So I'm going to go through the provisions very quickly and just highlight the ones that are relevant to the Architectural Review Board. So the first kind of outlines the purpose of the alternative use in historic structures, which the board may approve a special exception to allow a non-residential use in a historic structure. And the definition of historic structure is a structure identified on the Fairfax County Inventory of Historic Sites, which original Mount Vernon High School is, and we'll get to that a little bit later. The board will consider whether the nature, the scale of the use is compatible with the structure, site, and surrounding properties. So that's what the Board of Supervisors is to do. There's a limitation on uses included in this provision, the three that you have there. Animal-related uses, vehicle-related uses, and industrial uses, except for craft beverage production and small-scale production establishments. So there's always an exception to the rule. That is not proposed with original Mount Vernon High School, just caveating that. And the big one, number 3, is that all applications that include exterior modifications to the structure or site will be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. And in this case, the ARB has can make a recommendation on whether the proposal is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation for the properties. And the recommendation will be provided to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Further, number 4, the structure may not be altered or used in a manner that would remove it from the inventory of historic sites, keeping its integrity. And the last couple don't relate directly to the ARB, but its goods or items offered for sale may not be displayed outdoors. Restrictions on off-street parking and loading spaces. And the existing structure is not required to comply with the minimum lot size requirements or bulk regulations, but new additions must. Original Mount Vernon High School proposal meets all of these. And then the last 2 are board kind of add-ons that they can use, including standards and conditions as restrictions as necessary. So summarizing all that, underlined and bolded for you, is the ARB can make review and recommendations on exterior modifications to structures, and it should say and the site. Basically the same sort of provisions in a historic overlay district, except that we're only making recommendations, not approval on building permits and things like that. So are there any questions on this new exciting special use that we have?
I cannot
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, I was going to say, I cannot see our fellow members, but Mr. Burns, if you have a question, feel free to ask.
Yes. Does the county retain ownership under this proposal?
Yes, and we'll get we'll get into the project and proposal in the next couple slides. This is just based on the special exception only to tee it up for you all.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And as I understand, Laura, as you said, it's review and recommendations, like many other instances, that we get to provide those recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, and that's so they can be considered as the county goes forward. So it's nice to get our say in, like we're looking for here, but we don't have a yes/no ability.
Correct. Correct.
Any other members have any questions for Laura, or we'll turn it over to our other members of the county staff that want to present for us?
Thanks, everybody.
Hearing none, thank you, Laura. We'll turn it over to our 2 presenters.
iPad, can you confirm that you have a mic? Because from
Yes.
my end, oh, good.
Can you hear
good.
me?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
And I believe Joe was going to share the presentation slides.
I can if I'm allowed to. I believe at the moment it doesn't seem like I'm being permitted to share.
I'll make you a presenter in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully, Joe, we're able to give you that. Technology is just causing you all kinds of havoc today, Denise, and I feel for you.
There it is.
Thank
Right.
you. Sorry about that.
So you're seeing the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Great.
Well, good evening, all. I'm İpek Aktuglu and work as a project coordinator in the Building Design and Construction Division. Next slide, please. The original Mount Vernon High School project is located in Alexandria along Route 1 across South County building and at the border of Lee and Mount Vernon districts. Next slide. The building was built in 1939 and was part of the George Washington's Mount Vernon estate, and it is listed in the National Register of Historic Places as of May 2018. The county is pursuing state historic tax credits for this project, and BDHR provided conditional approval for the Part 2 application at the end of October. Next slide. The building was used by Saudi Academy about 30 years, and after they vacated the building several years ago, some interim uses were determined to occupy a small portion of the facility while the county was working on determining the best use for this large historic building. Next slide. This graphic shows the historic building features. The main historic building was built in 1939, as I mentioned before. You can see the contributing structures and contributing additions outside period of significance and which year they were built. There are two annex buildings that are outside of period of significance, which are to be demolished with this project. I like to mention that the exterior facade, windows, historic main entrance, and interior design elements will be maintained with this project as required by VDHR. Next slide. The goal for this project is to create a human development center by providing pathways to opportunity through education, workforce development, and life skills development programs, and building a community through a creation of a vibrant place. As you see on this slide, the adaptive reuse programming is organized under 3 groups: core, anchor, and complementary elements. And these building uses were carefully selected to create multi-generational community spaces and have a synergy among them. And now I'd like to introduce you to Joe Celentano with the VMDO Architects to present the design of the historic building.
Thank you, İpek. Good evening, all. I appreciate your giving us the opportunity to share this important project with you and commend you on your stamina tonight. It's been a whirling. So this is a great project. We're very excited to be part of it. I'll try to take you through the current design. Look forward to your comments. The strategy right now is, demolition of the non-historic structures, and as IPEC mentioned, and then hazmat remediation for the entire building. Replacement, upgrade of all the building systems, MEP, fire protection, security, building skin, accessibility upgrades, and then of course the Virginia Historic Tax Credits. We're working with the BDHR right now. In fact, we have conditional approval of a Part 2 application right now. Also pursuing LEED Gold, and we're on a path to make LEED Gold at the moment in terms of sustainability goals. So this is the historic front entrance and historic view of the building from Richmond Highway, and a really critical element in terms of maintaining the presence of this building in the community. So our approach here is really to completely leave this part intact with, of course, improvements and restoration work to the entire skin. Windows will be restored, not replaced. Roofs will be, slate roofs will be removed and then replaced with the appropriate slates, existing slates, and then all the wood trim and everything will be repaired and painted. So this facade will be improved but not changed. And this is coming around to the south side of the building, which in the view up on the left, you can kind of see that over time, the additions to this building were fairly haphazard. There wasn't really a lot of integrity to the way that they were thought of. And by being able to remove the two non-contributing pieces, it gave us an opportunity to try to restore some integrity to this side of the building and to bring some of the formality and axial quality of the original building to the south side here. So what our approach was to take the old shop building here and to kind of mirror that with another addition that's required for the childcare part of the program, and create a symmetry and an entrance here between those two buildings. Acknowledging, you can actually, when you're standing down here in the view, you can see the cupola beyond, so you can make the connection between this side of the building and the historic front. And then we've also added the Welcome Center here, which is and I'll talk more about how that came about, but an important new public space to the building. It's really not a lot of gathering space, mostly corridors and circulation in the existing building. We'll talk also about the childcare piece of the program, which is, you can kind of see the buses here, but this existing area that is being used as a childcare center. Let's see. So another thing I should mention here is that, of course, we have a pretty common condition with historic buildings, and that is the vehicular side, that the parking is going to be on this side of the building, and we're maintaining the front door as an entrance. There's still, with the improvements to Richmond Highway, the BRT, there's going to be a bus drop off, so there will be public transportation and people arriving on that side of the building, but there will be quite, significant amount of people arriving on this south side of the building in the parking leading to a new entrance. Here's a slightly changed angle of the view, and you can see again the existing old shop here, and then our new addition on this side that is mirroring that piece. And some of the material strategies we can point out at this point. I think we understand the importance of making sure of distinguishing the newer elements from the existing elements. We're also trying to be sympathetic to the material use here and the way that it reinforces this formal entrance and symmetry. So these two new pieces are brick. And this extends that kind of brick mass of the building, and this mirrors the the old shop here. The brick that we're using would be a similar color and quality to the existing brick, which again is not one brick because of the many additions, but also is used in a slightly different way. We're thinking about using a stack bond instead of a running bond. So just to distinguish in some ways the new additions, but also to respect the logic of the massing. And then the Welcome Center is really thought of as a kind of transparent element that ties together areas of the building and features the existing south facade of the building. So here's a little introduction to how that came about. This is a view of that south side. This is with the non-contributing addition kind of clogging that zone. When you remove that, you see the 1953 piece of the building here, which is historic, but has its own qualities. And then this diagram kind of talks about how up on the top right, talks about how connections, the circulation of the building really, this is an opportunity for us to tie what are now many different levels to the building and circulation paths. And so this Welcome Center becomes a hub and a connector. And so we're adding a new elevator tower here and a bridge over to the Teen and Senior Center. It comes off of this side. And then this pathway that allows to connect on the second floor and just create a more cohesive circulation system, and then a place, to be. With all these different uses in the building, there's going to be great opportunities for cross-pollination of those, and for families to be here doing different things and having a place to meet and a place to be. Is what the Welcome Center is really about. So we have some views here. This is looking on axis at the Welcome Center, which is minimal kind of construction, a glazed wall with a large overhang on the south here to protect that. You can actually see through, our rendering is kind of overemphasized some of the reflectivity, but you can see through the clear story right here. You actually see the cupola right up in this area. But this structure is meant to be, as kind of calm and transparent as possible. And this is the courtyard space that's created between the Welcome Center and the shop and childcare addition. And this is meant to be a program space. So there's going to be opportunities for outdoor music and other things in this space. Little play area, but just a general program space. We're also using wood on the underside of these, both the canopy roof and the main roof of the Welcome Center. Just a couple of shots of the interior of the Welcome Center, which again has a exposed frame structure that creates an element that sits away from the wall of the existing building, creates a little gap in there, and then gives us opportunities for connection across from one side of the building to the other, and connecting the different levels that are kind of halfway in between. And also the views out from here are going to be really great to the south as well. There are currently two interior courtyards in the plan that are, I would call them more like light wells than courtyards. They've not really been occupied spaces, but we're hoping to bring them back as occupied spaces and a usable program space. This longer courtyard is between the original academic wing and the gymnasium wing on this side, and creates an opportunity for us to create some outdoor space for the Teen and Senior Center that can exit directly into this area. On the childcare side, you're seeing the entrance here. This is actually the existing cafeteria and kitchen, and we are building the addition out in front of that and creating a zone in between. That's the new entrance to the childcare, which becomes a kind of mini Welcome Center in itself, and then an identity for the childcare as well. And then the Teen and Senior Center on the far east side of the building, this is the gym. Teen and Senior Center has its own entrance. And again, trying to create a little bit of identity for that piece here and kind of clean up the edges of that drop-off area and parking area. I think that's all the images. I'll just back up to the overall view. That might be a good place to talk from, but let's go there.
All right. Thanks so much. I guess I feel like what you're looking for is some initial reactions and comments and questions. So
sure.
Think we'll go just around the member list since I feel like everyone might have some thoughts and observations to share. Michelle, obviously you get first luck of the draw as always. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I drive by the school, the site, several times a week, and I see cars parked out there, so I know it is being used by somebody right now. It's good to see the plans for the adaptive reuse to make it more fully used and accessible. I really don't have any questions for you about the plan or the architecture or the uses. Obviously, a lot of thought has gone into all of that, and I just look forward to having the project move forward.
Thanks, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I do have one question. You mentioned that you were going for the Virginia State Preservation Tax Credits. Are you also considering going for the federal ones?
No, we are not.
You are not. Okay, that means I can comment. Okay.
Sure.
Otherwise, I would have a conflict of interest. So I had several comments. One is I'm delighted to see this move forward. I always enjoyed watching the buses come and go from the Saudi Academy when I was a tenant there. But I also remember that the Saudi Academy divided the school by sexes. Are those changes that you're able to change back, as it were, so that it can be a co-ed facility?
Yes.
I see a nodding head, so I assume that the answer is yes.
Yes, we're able to take out some of the 1980s work that was done.
Okay, cool. Then in your initial slide, Denise, if you can go back to that showed the dates of the various buildings with hatch marks that indicated their contributing status or not. There you go. Okay. In the / there, it looks as though on the far right of that drawing, the 1963 edition is contributing addition outside the period of significance. Does that mean it is going to be demolished? Because it appears to have survived in your Human Development Center slide. So what there is actually proposed for demolition of these things?
The only two that we're demolishing are the ones that are completely outside of the period of significance, these two structures.
And which two are those? I'm having trouble reading your drawing.
I'm sorry. 1962 and 54, the ones that are without hash marks.
60. Okay, so it is the light gray and the 1962, and down and to the left of that, the new
54. That's right.
Okay. Those are the only things proposed to them. Okay,
Correct.
good. That eliminates a whole series of my questions. Then in terms of access into the building, you had mentioned the improvements to the transportation corridor of Route 1, the bus rapid transit, and all that sort of stuff. Where is the BRT stop location with relation to your building? Is it at the Jerry Highland Center, or is it in front of your building, or where is it there?
It is at the corner, just to the kind of left top of this image, Richmond Highway up here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but
No. Yeah, okay. I'm familiar with that location. So it's at the traffic light where it's the parking lot exit from the Highland Center, and then also right adjacent to your property, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, good. Then the mentioned putting an elevator tower in the welcome area. Does
Yes.
it require an overrun that will project above the historic cornices at all, or historic gables?
We put that into our new element. You can kind of see it right here on the top right. It's in our new flat roof of this element here.
Okay, so
it
it
doesn't get
looks
into
as it just comes up maybe equivalent to the cornice level there, not above.
Yeah, I don't think it gets
Roughly.
above our
Okay.
cornice. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then all of these uses are a significant change in the orientation in terms of entrance to the building. You know, the 1939 entrance was on Route 1, and all of this, and you said you're going to retain that, but all of the new access points, for the most part, are from the parking lot at the rear of the site. And so, is there any potential use for the original front entrance? I mean, are you thinking about putting a giant ramp up to it, or what? What's going on with the relation to the original entrance and the new proposed entrance access points?
Yeah, so we had proposed an accessible route to the main entrance, and the VDHR would not permit that.
Okay. So it will be mostly an artifact. And then the little parking lot that's out there, that becomes superfluous. Will that go away, or will that be, how will that be treated?
The little drop-off area?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll stay just because of its historic nature.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Actually, I like to add the drop-off area will stay, but parking is going to be eliminated because there's going to be a VDOT project that is acquiring more right-of-way from our project. So the right-of-way will come closer to the building.
Right.
Okay, so the bus rapid transit proposal is going to take away some of your front yard, as it were.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, I love the bus rapid transit. Okay, thank you. And then the last question I had is, in your renderings of the Welcome Center interior, it appears as though you've created a transom above the addition, above the cornice of the 1950s addition there. Am I reading that correctly? Yes, in the lower left slide there. So you're going to have light coming in, because that will be a good source of external light if that were to come in. Is that the case?
Correct, yes.
Okay, cool.
And from the VDHR perspective also, they like when you can leave the existing top edge of the building, obscure the top edge of the building.
Right. You leave it existing, and you also provide light into the new space that you've created.
Right.
Those are my only questions. Thank you very much for the presentation, and I look forward to the revitalization of the property.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. Wan?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, and I'm really excited about this project, and happy to see a historical building got repurposed. I don't have any question, but I also I just want to mention that a couple points you mentioned in the presentation, and I think that's all really good thing in addition of reprogramming this building. You mentioned about the building gonna have a gonna achieve LEED gold. I like that, and I also see you utilize the glass box to enhance the historical character. We have seen a lot of successful case in the past, so I have no doubt it will be successful for this project as well. Really like how you mirror the workshop, so to form a sort of entrance at the rear side. I think that's all very successful. So all in all, I'm really supportive on this project and looking forward to see more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wan. Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay. Well, I'm encouraged, greatly encouraged by this, because I happen to live in the area and pass it all the time too. I love the idea. I love the programming of the building. It's all good. Everything nicely laid out, but as always, the devil's in the details. So I can't wait to see how the and say the glass box presents itself when you guys come back through with your final plans. So looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Miss Murray.
I think it's very exciting and it's going to be a wonderful adaptive reuse, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this progress.
Thank you, Elise. Miss Orr.
I'm very excited for this repurposing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Plumpy.
Yeah, I'm the landscape architect on the board. Looks really great. Exterior spaces that really blend in nicely with the interior spaces that pass through transparency. Love it. Question is the project funded? When do you, or when do you think it would be constructed?
Yes, the project is fully funded, and the construction will start at the end of 2022. It's in about a year.
2022. That is very good. Is the full design team established, or is just the architect right now working with the civil and so forth?
We have a full design team currently. We have MEP engineers, and then civil and architects and geotechnical engineers and structural engineers on board.
And land design is our landscape architect.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, appreciate it. Yep, nice job.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
I look forward to it as well. Looks like a good project. I don't have anything to add that hasn't been said already. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Zellman. And so I agree with my fellow board members. Very excited, happy to hear that it's fully funded and that there's a team set up. I am always interested to see these glass facades moving forward. Some of them, when I actually did work in DC, I worked across from one in Judiciary Square that went up that honestly kind of felt like we called it the fish tank because of the way it was oriented with the building. And it really just felt like again, a goldfish tank jettisoning off the side of the building. And this, I actually like that it's more seamlessly integrated into the facade so that it's providing the kind of like a window box look in, as opposed to we dropped a glass structure. It almost, the one I see across the street at Judiciary Square looks like something out of Minecraft, I guess, to keep term with the kids these days. It looks like someone built an addition using that. This I like better because it seems to really kind of suggest, hey, look, this is on the back of a historic building. I agree with Mr. Burns about the disappointment that the main entrance, the original entrance, is going to become more of a ceremonial entrance. I've seen that in my other professional career involving VA medical centers, and when I worked at the Army and military installations, frequently those grand entrance spaces, while they were great back in the day with the VA, they weren't very conducive to veterans walking up and down them to actually go get health care. And then with the Army, apparently everyone wanted to go through the side entrances and not the main entrance, because I guess you were just getting in trouble if you were going through those. So obviously, as long as we're not deprioritizing it in the sense that we're not taking away from it, that prominent space on the front is still not clear that this is the original entrance, the original space, I think, I'm still happy there. I like the ideas of what we're trying to mimic with the new construction. So overall, I'm very happy with what I'm seeing, and I, like my fellow board members, look forward to seeing it continuing to progress. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we look forward to hearing.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask two more
Oh,
questions?
yes, certainly, Mr. Burns.
I apologize. These one just occurred to me, and one I forgot to ask. Several years ago, probably 10 years ago at this point, we considered a proposal to have a mental health facility for South County in the old Home Ec building. But I don't recall you in your statements about what the new facilities will have, that there will be a mental health facility here. So what happened to that first, and then is that a consideration for the future uses?
Well, actually, to be honest, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. Probably it precedes my time with the county, but I'll be happy to look into and ask around what happened with that. But I have not heard a discussion that is going to be part of this facility. This is more like a human development center, utilizing education and workforce development. So, but I will go ask around and provide more information at our next meeting.
Okay, and then based on the renderings that you've shown of the new proposed Human Development Center, like what you're illustrating currently, are all those light blue rooftops solar panels?
Well, yes, they are currently shown as solar panels, but our consultants are working on the analysis, so it is not finalized yet.
Okay, and given the amount of land that you have available to you, have you guys considered using the thermal heat energy and in the ground for?
Yeah,
you're ahead of us, John.
Yes.
We have geothermal is our current system.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
John, you made me think of one other thing. Is there? I know you. I thought those were solar as well. Was there any consideration for green roofs as well?
Well, we also considered green roofs, but the thing is, the county has new sustainable development policy. So in order to meet that, we probably are going to need all the roof space for the solar panels.
All right, understood. Thank you, though, for those additional clarifications. We look forward to hearing more about it and seeing more as it develops. So thank you so much. Thank you for sticking it out with us, too.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
your
you for
comments.
your time.
All right. This time, Denise, you can take back the presenter role, and we have no further workshop sessions, and we have no presentations for the evening, which takes us on to board and staff items. So at this point, that would bring us into the review and action on approval of previous month's minutes. Denise provided us all with the November 2021 meeting minutes, and I would look for if anyone had any comments or revisions that you needed to provide to those meeting minutes. And if there are none, and Denise, if you received none, then we could entertain a motion to approve and pay the recording secretary.
I have received no revisions to the minutes.
All right. Looking at the cameras across my screen, I don't see that anyone's got any. Oh, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from the November ARB meeting and payment to the recording secretary.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Kolinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none. Motion passes. All right, Denise, treasurer's report.
Yes, thank you. So the November balance, beginning balance was $26,698.40. There were various budget adjustments, and then we paid the clerk, and for an ending balance of $21,146.81.
Thank you, Denise. Any member comments, questions? Seeing none.
Am I correct? That was a $5,000 difference?
Yes,
what were these adjustments?
African American survey. Excuse me, John. Yes, I should have specifically mentioned that.
Okay.
The contribution for the African American survey.
I didn't see that on our discussion or updates for reports, but I was going to point that out that Denise had told me that that had been successful. So I assumed that was probably the missing money. All right, if there are no other comments, that takes us on to administrative items, which are pretty critical today. It was pointed out by Ms. Aubrey that we did not designate a nomination committee at the last month's meeting, which would have sought a slate of candidates for officers, because every Every year we have to do an election in December to hold our elections before our January meeting, so they have to happen this month. In discovering that, we obviously, Ms. Aubrey, Mr. Zellman, and I sought at least the question of the 3 existing officers: would we be willing to stand for re-election if nominated? Being confirmed amongst the 3 of us, all 3 of us were fine with that. That being said, us agreeing amongst ourselves that we'd be fine to be elected is not enough, so we would actually need someone to make a motion to propose a slate of officers for election if that was going to happen, and we have to go through those motions. So I would entertain a motion to present a slate of officers for election.
I'd be happy to make a motion to present a slate of officers: Mr. Daniels for chairman, Mr. Zellman for vice chairman, and Ms. Aubrey for recording secretary.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Well, except that he nominated Ms. Aubrey for recording secretary.
I'm sorry.
Not treasurer.
Treasurer. Pardon me. Can I make amend my motion? Friendly amendment.
The seconder approves the amendment.
Treasurer. Sorry about that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. I believe the way it goes is that we simply vote. All those in favor of the presented slate of officers, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. We have our new slate of officers for 2022. Look forward to serving with you all again for next year. And we promise you in 2022 November, we will make sure that nomination committee is formed so we catch it next time. Put a Google Calendar reminder on that one. I think we've had a lot of stuff on our board staff items. I think that's where we've gotten lost in there. All right, discussion, updates, and reports. Denise, Colvin Run Mill General Store.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, it was brought up, last meeting or the meeting before? Last meeting, it was brought up that the Colvin Run Mill General Store is not designated as anything in the historic overlay district for Colvin Run Mill, and maybe suggested that perhaps there could just be a motion to designate it as contributing. However, there's some concern about just arbitrarily doing that, the ARB having that authority to do that. So I've reached out to the county attorney's office to ask the question, what is the process for designating something contributing that hasn't already been designated in the formation of the historic overlay district? So we're waiting to hear back about that.
Yes, in talking to Denise, we realized that we didn't want to overstep our bounds in what we could or could not do with properties considered historic, contributing or non-contributing. So she's getting us an answer on that and finding out if it's as simple as we think it is or if it's going to require a little bit more effort. So Denise, obviously, please keep us posted. Moving forward, Wellington at River Farm studies funding request update.
So Laura was going to take that one. We're tag teaming tonight.
Hi everybody. Just wanted to give you an update on that. I know a couple months ago, I think Michelle, you asked about whether or not we could use the $2 million funding that was set aside for the purchase of Wellington for the additional studies that we had asked for on the property, which include an archaeological study and cultural landscape study. So I tried to figure out how we could get that from the county. And I consulted with Leanna and Human Resources to figure out how that would go forward. And Leanna recommended that if the ARB made the request for funding, we could add it to DPD's budget for, I don't know if it's this fiscal year, but we could add it to the next budget round. And it would just become an ARB funded program in our payment system. So I've already worked with Liz Kroll, who was here earlier, on getting estimates for those. And I think it's just a formality to have the ARB write a letter requesting additional funding for those, even though we as staff requested that as well. Happy to field questions on that.
So for some context for everybody about this one, and part of the reason why you got that email from me asking for us to have a discussion about ARB priorities going into 2022 is that we've started to become a little bit more energetic in pursuing how we can procure funds from the county to do things beyond just, you know, our advising and approving applications, but also advising the Board of Supervisors on initiatives for preservation across the county. Recognizing we've got a narrow amount of bandwidth for that, for how much we can and can't do and what we could potentially get funding for. And obviously we're going to be asking DPD to seek funds. I wanted us to have a conversation about what we as the ARB thought were our priorities going into 2022, so that when we started making motions or asking for letters to ask DPD to seek funding, we were picking the ones that we thought were the most important. Not to say right now that Wellington isn't important, but that thinking about there are several different initiatives, and looking back, we have the African American study that we just committed $5,000 of our own money to match. Kind of lining out just in a discussion what we thought was the most important. So I know Laura's talking about having us make a motion or send a letter. That's part of what spurred this conversation in my mind, and after talking with staff was, well, where are we headed, so that when we start talking about these things, you know, we know what we're looking at in 2022 as the priority items to, you know, seek or aggressively pursue county funding and, you know, towards. Obviously we want it all, but, you know, in some perspectives, we've got to start thinking about which are the ones we want the most, or which ones do we want to prioritize given the threats imposing upon them. So that's me throwing that extra context out there before anyone necessarily proposes a motion for me to write a letter about Wellington. But I would entertain any other comments or questions from any of the other board members to Laura on this. Michelle.
But the reason why I brought it up last time, and why I think even if we didn't have it as our highest priority, we still should ask for it, because the $2 million supposedly was appropriated and passed by the state of Virginia, to go to do work at Wellington. So it's not county money, you know, we're not asking for county money, we're asking for that state money that was appropriated. And since they designated it to be, to go towards helping preserve Wellington, undertaking those two studies that have already were identified in the Historic Overlay District in the staff report as being necessary, it's just kind of taking advantage of an opportunity that dropped in our lap, even if it is not at the highest priority.
I follow you, Michelle. And this was more of a discussion of the fact that obviously we're seeking every pot and avenue we can. And I know that even if we think we can get access to that, that we may not, the county may decide to take it from elsewhere. I can't guarantee that. So that was part of the conversation, as well as the fact that I know that we are short-staffed was the other thing that made me think of this conversation. Denise is pulling double duty right now. As we all know, we don't have staff reports because we had a lot of staff changes go on that we're not there yet with that. So that was part of the reason this conversation came out. So I'm definitely not, I'm in support of seeking, if that's money that we think we should direct the county to seek for a specific purpose. I would agree. That's perfectly reasonable for us to make that request. And I think based on what Laura and Denise have told me, it would take one of two formats from us, either a motion or a letter, or a motion and a letter, you know, indicating that we think the county should utilize those funds to conduct that additional study effort.
And Chris, if I could make one point of clarification, I did follow up asking the question about where the $2 million went and if we could use that. And since the money was specifically earmarked for purchase of the property, we cannot, it's now dissolved. It's that money is not available anymore. So I was seeking other avenues of how to get it, which is why I consulted with Leanna to say, you know, we finally got this HOD approved. Let's get the additional information that we need to get. I have the estimates. Leanna said we could move it forward. So it's not that I don't think we get it, but I think to Chris's point of what the priority was, is that was the bigger discussion. So the money from the state really isn't on the table anymore. This was just an alternate method of how we could properly try to get that survey money.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, one of the things that occurs to me is that you put in the request, and even if you get only part of what you're asking for, you've established a precedent of the county beginning to fund surveys. We desperately need surveys countywide. So if we can get our foot in the door and establish a precedent that if the county is approving HODs, that you need to have surveys to back that stuff up, this is a wonderful opportunity.
The only, I guess, observation I'd add to that, John, though, is that I agree, we need more surveys, but do we want to make it our point to make a survey here in a place that's now an HOD, or are there other places where we definitely think, that's where I started coming from the priority discussion point of, if we need to convey clearly to the county staff and DPD, here are the areas, if you're getting a limited amount of funding for certain things, this is what we think is number one, this is number two, and I don't like even ranking them necessarily, but from a perspective of Wellington, in my mind, Wellington's in a historic overlay district now. So anything that happens there now, from most perspectives, is going to have to come through us. So we have at least a little bit more of a foothold compared to some of the other modern architecture questions. But that's my perspective on it, at least.
It's late. I'm tired. Is this something that has to be decided tonight? Or can we ponder it for a month?
So
you can just ponder. There's no reason we have to do it right this second. Obviously, the sooner the better, but please feel free to ponder.
Thank you.
What I would add for the context then is that I think in January, we've got to have the discussion and we've got to convey it, though, because from what I've talked to Denise about, if we don't make it clear in January, the budget cycle, we're going to miss a lot of the opportunities. So I think on our agenda for January, we need to have a serious conversation about what do we want to convey to DPD we think they need to prioritize funding for. And if they want to earmark it against us to say that's A or B priorities, that's fine. But then I think this is something, John, you struggled with before. We want to get our foot in the door with the county about what they need to fund. But I'm happy to table that till January. And that gives everyone more time to think about what you want to suggest too. All right. Well, then let's run through these. I agree. Oh, yes, Michelle.
Can I just add another little 2 cents?
Absolutely.
I think since we're talking survey, shouldn't we be coordinating with the History Commission? Because they certainly have a role in this. And if both this History Commission and the ARB were simultaneously making the same request or signing the same memo, a single memo that comes from both of them, it's two boards that are asking, who both have an interest, and each are looking at it probably from a different perspective. I mean, we're looking at it because we're looking at possible development, and we want to preclude development that's going to end up tearing down some historic structure. And the History Commission is looking at it from a different perspective. But they still want to identify and preserve the structures as well. So I don't think we should be doing it necessarily just on our own.
No, but we have our ex officio member who could obviously provide some context on that.
I think the History Commission would like to be advised and would probably support it. The only survey we have going right now is the African American survey, other than the inventory. And we're not getting funding from the county to do that. it's coming from, Denise, it's coming from what, grants and internal funding?
The county did put up a significant amount towards the funding of the survey. It was $30,000 altogether.
I was gonna say we put up $5,000, didn't we? So.
Yes, 7, 5, and then matching with the state. And so everybody was part of the African American survey.
Okay, but in general, the History Commission does not want to get in the survey business. The Civil War Names Project only worked because of COVID. I don't think it could have possibly have been done in any other world. So the commission really prefers that things be funded elsewhere, that we don't have to administrate. So yes, the commission would like to talk to you about it, but it's not something. There are several of us who think survey is very important, but it's not a high priority for the bulk of the commission, I don't think. So yes, this is all the things we think about for next month.
Yes, absolutely. Let's run through them. Let's hit the streets high speed. Holland Hills, Denise.
That's actually me.
Oh, Holland Hills.
That's okay.
Laura,
It's okay. No, that's okay. So Holland Hills, we had a meeting on Monday night revealing the poll results from the community. I think we had 62% of the community in support of the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. So that's great news. The supervisor Stork has said he was moving to authorize it authorize the public hearings and advertise them on January, and then looking to have the public hearings on February 23rd, Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors on March 8th.
All right, thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
I just gotta say, I think we need to prepare a process for we're ever gonna do this with public comments, because if this most recent one was any example, we need a really easy way of managing this if we're still not in person. Just a tiny caveat there. Home run acres, or sorry,
Totally.
runs acres.
I totally agree with that. I'm already thinking about it. Yes, so Homes Run Acres, the work group meeting, the work group is going to meet next Wednesday, and Mr. Daniel has offered to come and talk to the work group about the ARB process, what it means to be in a historic overlay district, et cetera, et cetera. They're also looking at the revision of their design guidelines and discussing other various things that they would like to discuss. So thank you very much to Mr. Daniel for agreeing to do that.
Well, and I know several members do sit in there. I was given the impression, though, that there are several members of the community that might not actually understand what it means to be an HOD and what it means, what we're looking for from an architectural perspective and character. I'm there to kind of, just paint a picture. Yes, Elise.
At my suggestion, Mr. Burns already did that with the work group. So I just want you to be aware it's covered. So you might want to rethink what you're going to say, and perhaps I had technical problems, so I didn't see John's talk.
Oh, I didn't realize that, John. When did you do that?
Look back on it.
And I apologize, Mr. Burns. I was not aware of that.
I echo Ms. Murray's statement. This group of residents, they tended to keep coming back with the same question over and over again.
It doesn't bother me to repeat what I may have said. I just hope that you don't contradict anything I have said.
I hope not either. Well, Denise, maybe you and I should talk about whether or not I'm happy to be there to observe and at least chime in if sought. But
now, mind you, I did this long enough ago that I believe at that time I was chairman, and so I don't think there's any problem in them hearing from the current chairman.
Yeah, I agree, because we are
heard
still
from Heron House that changes of regime make big differences.
Please don't ever call what I have a regime.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Well, plan to attend the meeting regardless, and at least introduce myself and provide a little perspective. But I will keep that all in mind. Thank
Thank
you.
you again. And I do apologize, Mr. Burns. It must not have been a recorded meeting because I watched every record of the meetings and did not see your presentation.
Oh, well.
It was online because I had problems with my Verizon service.
Okay, I'll go back and check.
Yeah, it was in the spring, I believe. Whenever in the spring, long ago.
Can I nominate?
Right around the time Mr. Daniel talked to the Holland Hills group.
Ah, okay.
Can I nominate Denise for sainthood? For doing all that?
Yeah. For watching every one of those, yes, I would agree.
That or nominate her for recording secretary, one or the other.
All right. Regardless, I will intend to be there because I think it's always good to keep abreast of how these are all progressing, since Holland Hills is going to be moving to the next stage and Homes Run may well move that direction or may not. Who knows? Rezoning cases. Do we have any? Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to say the only rezoning case that I'm aware of is the one that you just saw the presentation of, the original Mount Vernon High School. I'm not aware of any other rezoning cases at this time.
Don't see any members having any comments. Any other discussion, updates, or reports?
So Laura was going to talk to you about, oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. I will be really quick. We just received an interjurisdictional review about the National Park Service new plan for wolf trap and the modifications that they're doing. And John, I don't know if you know anything about this, but you may. Okay.
I do not.
So, okay, great. What we found out was there's been there's a section 106 associated with it, obviously, because it's National Park Service money. And the Heritage Resources Group, meaning Denise and I, did not get an opportunity to participate in that section 106 process, even though they've had meetings as recently as, I think, last month. So anyway, we are trying to figure out where the blip is on that, and that's just a picture of bad communication within the county and with VDHR. So we're trying to fix that. But what I wanted to pose to you all at this point is they're already, I want to say, they're working on a programmatic agreement for it already. They're making changes to the Filing Center, which is on the National Register, they're doing research and it's eligible, and they're planning to write a nomination for the Filing Center and put it on the National Register, but they're already saying it's an adverse effect. And so I'm not sure at this point if what I wanted to pose to you all is if you wanted to be a consulting party on it. It's a little late. We got it very late. I'm not sure how much benefit it would be for us to do it at this point, but wanted to pose that all to you. There's a very quick turnaround on this, obviously, so I just wanted to at least bring it to your attention for tonight and to see if there was any kind of interest in being consulting party, because we would need to elevate that accordingly. So
I'll highlight, since we're not advising a federal agency at this moment, a consulting party can join at any time in the 106 process. So if we chose to participate, we could indicate that at any point. So we could do it now if we wanted to.
I have a question that's kind of related to a separate Section 106 case, and that is there any chance that the county has determined that they will be the consulting party for this, similar to what they did to us with the One University Plaza?
it may be. I'm still trying to figure it out, John. I've been contacting VDHR this week and then trying to figure out who their contact at Park Service is to figure out who they consulted with in the county, if they did. So I'll get back to you as soon as I find that information. Just didn't get a response back this week.
Well, I would look if there's an indication from any of the members that we should go one way or another on this. If so, Jason's probably going to have to be the one that would have to indicate it to the staff, since I can't provide that direction.
I can, oh, I was going to say, I can also send you the proposal and we can review it for next month and to see if we want to be a consulting party or not before you make, there's a lot more to the proposal that I just gave you, but that was the main gist.
Do you have the current draft agreement and all those materials now?
I don't think they've finished their draft agreement. I have the proposal of what they're looking to do and the changes they're making, but I don't think they've gone that far.
Please, yeah, send that to all the members
Okay.
so we can look at that. And obviously anything that comes through in the interim, if they're moving at that kind of clip, share it before
Okay.
we get it before the meeting.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Sounds
Laura.
good. Thank you.
Any other updates? All right. Correspondence announcements. Technically, correspondence announcements, wouldn't that also be the courthouse repairs letter? But regardless, those are the next two ones, are two letters, unless there are any other announcements. Okay, well, we'll go for mine first, then we'll go to Jason. So response to letter regarding the Lake Ann cursory report. So lots of feedback following our letter. Just as I'll go back in time as most recent, Wednesday this week, Denise and Samantha and I met with the president and another member of the LARCA board to talk about their concerns and interests, and we conveyed that the ARB wants to try to be supportive with applications coming in that would address these repairs. So we designated Samantha and I as their primary points of contact so that they have a pretty straightforward conduit. We indicated that we have a lot of expertise on the board and that if they want to avail themselves of that, that's a possibility that we might be able to provide input, even workshop sessions or other means. And they are kind of assessing in various different ways how to proceed. The only other bits of information is I will add that there were some media inquiries about the letter. They've been going through the public affairs office of the county, and I don't even think they'll ever get to me. But a lot of folks were asking how to get a hold of Mr. Daniel. And last but not least was as many of you saw in the news, the Gupta Foundation kicked off an initiative called Lake Ann Rising that they were proposing to provide some funding through their foundation to help support initiatives at Lake Ann. Upon our letter going out, they also reached out to me to ask about potentially helping fund the supplementary study. I indicated that I was not sure if that was something that could even happen. Denise was helpful enough to find out that yes, the county can accept gifts. So there is the possibility in the future that if the stars align appropriately, there might be other benefactors that might help support the funding of the supplementary study. Right now, there's a lot of moving things going on with this with LARCA, the Gupta Foundation, and others. We have the estimates. I have a feeling in January there might be more discussion on where we might go from there. But lots of things happening. All right, there's my quick and dirty on that. Not seeing any hands up. I think we're good. Jason, courthouse letter.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to fix it grammatically and typo wise. But other than that, got the letter history commission out, made some changes to it just to reflect obviously from us. And then there were a couple other things I wanted to put in there that I think were important that we would consider, specifically in the second to last paragraph, talking about how that there had been some repairs that were about to be made, but it was not anybody who had experience in repairing historic structures, and we didn't know that they were about to do that. And thankfully, someone who worked over at the historic courthouse was able to stop that from happening. But just to kind of add a little bit of urgency to our request as well. But happy to consider anybody's comments.
All right. If anybody has any other comments, please send them on to Jason on that, and hopefully we'll get that letter out ideally before by the new year, so we have something to put in. And this is another thing that triggered this discussion on priorities. There probably needs to be an HOD at the courthouse, and we probably need to think about prioritizing that resource too. But discussion for another day. But say we've got so many things to juggle there. And any other comments or questions to Jason? All right. Any new?
Chairman, one other old business item. I just mentioned a minute ago, One University Plaza, the county has taken over consulting party status for us? What have they reported back to us on what's going on in that project, if anything?
Denise, that would be a question for you.
It would, except that it's not my project, and I was hoping that Laura was still on and she might be able to speak to it. I can certainly find, oh, she is. Okay, just gonna say I can certainly find out for you, John. I have not heard.
We have a meeting tomorrow with the county attorneys on the bylaws, John, and to get clarification on this process, because what ended up holding us up was the History Commission has a policy for if the consulting party and how we do that and convey that to the board if they want to be a consulting party. And so we're just trying to bring them in line. So we literally have a meeting on it tomorrow, and I can give you an update.
But since the county is at the moment acting as consulting party for One University Plaza, what actions has the county taken in that role?
What action? I'm not sure. I don't know.
They're not reporting back to us, in other words.
No, not to me.
Delightful. Thank you.
All right. You always save the best ones for last, John.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. That's why we have you here. All right. That's old business. Any new business? Seeing none. I'll only throw one item out there. Laura, Denise, on January, I want to have an update on staff reports. It's the only other item I want to throw out there. We don't have to talk about it today, but if we could talk about where they might be and where we might be talking 2022 for admin priorities, that would be fantastic. I think Hairden Run House proved that staff reports would be really helpful. Oh, Denise, you don't have to raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. You're in charge of this whole show.
Well, thank you for the floor, though. I did want to mention that Mr. Daniel went to the History Commission last week and spoke with the History Commission, and they are very interested in holding a joint meeting with the ARB. Clearly in the new year, I would offer that maybe we could consider, once we hire my replacement for the History Commission, we can work together to do that. They suggested perhaps, or maybe it was Mr. Daniel suggested having it at Lake Anne, which I think sounds really nice. And maybe in the spring or as the weather starts to get a little bit warmer. So I wanted to put that out there.
I forgot about that. I'm also causing trouble at the History Commission. So I was there attending that meeting and updating them on Lake Anne. They will likely be indicating a letter of support or a motion of support in next month for our letter as well about Lake Anne. So meeting with our allies and other boards and commissions.
Said letter has already been drafted, so it will be ready for the commission to debate promptly at our first Wednesday in January meeting.
I gotta say, they were having quite the fun time at their meeting. So I feel like I might start sneaking into them more often.
we had a quote half-hour pre-meeting holiday gathering. So Chris tuned in during the holiday gathering. So he didn't. We were not all business all the time.
That's what they said. We'll see if that's true. All right. If there's no other new business, thanks for that catch there, Denise. I'm not seeing any. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion adjourn's always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, man. Have a good one. Take care now. See you next year.
Next year.
See. Good night, everyone.
Peace. Namaste.
Good night, Denise. I'll see you later. I can't hear you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks for coming.
No problem.
Technology was not my friend tonight.
It's okay. Don't worry. I'll see you
Well, I
later.
think so.
Go ahead.
Something that was happened. I just want to